United Nations Environment Program and European Union. So we are really delighted to share with all of you today the findings and also the kind of work we did for this project, of course, because of the support that we are getting from UNEP, and also because of the local stakeholders who have been involved, those who have been who we have invited today, and those who will be joining us online. So thank you for that. Before we start, my IT team, may I please request if you can check if Mr. Asad Naqvi is online with us? No? So, Beatrice, if you can please let me know if Asad is joining.
Good morning to everyone. I would suggest, Zainab, that we invite him later for his remarks when he joins, but I have already alerted him of this.
All right, not a problem at all. So in the meanwhile, I'll just briefly share about the project that we are doing on used textile circularity and the trade around used textiles. So because we all understand the fact that Pakistan is one of the largest markets of secondhand textiles, secondhand clothing, and that we are importing from European Union, from US, from other parts of the world. And there's a huge potential for secondhand clothing in Pakistan. Based on that, the entire idea of this project was to come up with, to conduct the value chain analysis in Pakistan. I'll be briefing you all about it later in the presentation, and also to assess how the existing regulations and policies that we have, that they support the secondhand clothing trade or not, and how the interventions or the kind of recommendations can be provided to the policymakers to provide support for this secondhand clothing textile market in Pakistan. It has been an interesting journey. This project is not only being implemented in Pakistan, but also other African countries. I will invite Beatrice to explain a bit about the project, and Beatrice, then we can go with the presentation if that's okay with you.
Yes, Zainab, I think we sent the slides, if it's possible to share with everyone.
Yeah, sure. Omer, can you please display the slides? Just a minute. Let me reshare it again if you haven't received it. So, Jaya or Beatrice, if you would like to share your screen.
Okay, I will try that if you give me just a moment, please.
Sure, please.
Is it visible now?
Yes, it is visible now.
Okay, so what I would suggest is that we give a brief overview of this project for those of you who are seeing this for the first time. And then if we can hand over back to you, Zaina, for the presentation on the policy analysis and value chain that you have done, and then come back to UNEP for the presentation about the criteria and the sorting structure that we are proposing for this workshop. So I'll start, and good day to everyone, and to all of you who are joining us also online. My name is Beatriz Fernandez, and I apologize because my camera is not working this morning, but I work with UNEP in the Environment and Trade team, and I'm very pleased to be collaborating with SCPI and all of us in this project that you see on the first screen. On the first slide, this is the name, Circularity and Used Textiles Trade. So as the name says, we're looking at the downstream side of the value chain on how to enhance the sustainability and circularity of the secondhand textiles and its trade. So just wanted to put us in context, and this is of course nothing new to you because many of you are already very immersed in the textile sector, but just wanted to give a brief picture that the textile industry as a whole is projected to reach $3.3 trillion in 2030. So this is a very important sector for UNEP that we have identified as high impact sector, which means that there's some environmental, social, and economic impacts that I'll mention in my next slide. So the sector contributes to 2 to 8% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. There's a lot of consumption of water and resources around the production of textiles, and also 9% of textiles are producing textiles are producing 9% of the microplastic pollutions that are going into our oceans. At the same time, there are social elements of this sector, but we know them very well. That ranges from labor issues to health risk and other situations. But we also know that it's a sector that provides a lot of opportunities for employment, for economic growth. Women are an important part of this workforce. And thus it's a sector that, as I said at the beginning, UNEP has identified as a high impact sector, which means that, yes, there are these impacts that I have mentioned to you and you can see on this slide, but equally is a sector that if things are correctly addressed and the policy conditions are placed correctly, it could also be a sector that helps in the transformation towards a green, sustainable, and resilient economy. So in this part, UNEP, as I said, and Zainab has already kindly introduced, we are collaborating with STPI in this project that is funded by the European Union, and we're very grateful for this support. The project started late last year and is running until September 2025. Naturally, we are participating with Pakistan, but also with Kenya, with Tunisia, and Ghana. And across these 4 countries, we are working with government ministries from trade, industry, environment, and so on, with policymakers, with industry partners, with civil society, with international and trade organizations, with intergovernmental organizations as well. So this project acknowledges that there's a very good understanding and a lot of research already done around the impacts of the trade of secondhand textiles. So this project aims to contribute to this agenda by providing potential solutions on how to address those negative impacts. And we're aiming to do it through 3 key objectives. The first one is to develop a global guideline that helps determine what is suitable to be traded as a used textile, which means that what is exported as a secondhand textile will create economic value, social growth, but equally will be coupled with environmental objectives. And a global criteria that helps better differentiate what is used textiles that you can put back in the economy and textile waste that will have to be managed in a different way. So actually today's workshop is quite pertinent because we are gathering today to get your expertise, your views, your inputs on how we can together shape these 2 elements, the global criteria and the guideline. And we have these communities of practice like today. This is a workshop that we're having a national policy dialogue in Pakistan again next week, and we're going to be running a series of consultations with a diversity of stakeholders. And if you see, I've been mentioning global criteria because we are taking the knowledge, the expertise of Pakistan and the other 3 countries through the research and data gathering that they've been conducting on the ground with different stakeholders through different methods, and to have that information and that data helping us guide what this criteria and guideline could look like. So the intention is to use information of these 4 countries and help us convene a wider group of stakeholders and the countries that are not necessarily officially participating in this project, but are equally invested in secondhand textiles industry, so that we can together bring a global outlook to this criteria and guideline. So really the workshop today is an important stepping stone for this project, and we really value and appreciate your expertise, your inputs, and help co-shape this together. And there's a third element of this project, and I'll finish this presentation for now, on identifying what are the priorities, what are the opportunities, and what are the strategies that Pakistan is already implementing or would like to do to advance and enhance the sustainability and circularity on the secondhand textiles trade. So what are those priorities? And the second point is to help and support to identify and to include what are the trade and fiscal policy, the financing, the investment, and any other enablers that can help Pakistan to build that foundation that help them realize that vision. And with that, the mechanism would be a national policy dialogue that I just anticipated will be taking place in Pakistan on the 6th of November, where we'll be convening key stakeholders around policy to start co-shaping and supporting them on this. So I'm pausing here and sending the floor back to you, Zainab, and for the presentation that you were giving us in this excellent work that SCPI has been doing as part of this development of the criterion guideline to understand the value chain, the policy conditions, the landscape. And if it's okay with you, Zainab, then we come back and we can present what a skeleton and the structure of a guideline and criteria is looking like at the moment that we'd like to use as basis to facilitate the discussions in this workshop. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Beatrice, for a very interesting presentation around the introduction of the project. So I think we can start with my presentation to give a brief around the work we are doing. And then we can go about how we will be doing the group work activities. IT team, can you please display my presentation? Thank you. So, circularity in used textile trade in Pakistan, our work is around policy, value chain, and today the criteria development for, of course, achieving sustainable pathways. So this graph here, it explains or it indicates how the imports by Pakistan for second-hand clothing, they have increased over the years. And especially if you see the trend line, it's enhancing, it's improving, and it is, I mean, indicating the potential of this second-hand clothing items trade between Pakistan and rest of the world. So the socio-economic impact of second-hand clothing. Interestingly, we all understand the fact that before 2010, the local brands were not very popular, and most of us, most of the people in the country would refer to second-hand flea markets or landa bazaars for buying or purchasing the second-hand clothes and clothing items, because there has been a trend of around, imported items being of good quality, and especially if it's coming from Europe and USA, so people would definitely look for these kind of clothing items and would go to flea markets to purchase the items, and it used to be very cheap. But after 2010, there has been a boom when we talk about the local textile industry and the local brands. But even then, the second-hand textile market did not suffer much. Why? Because although we had a boom of local brands, but local, the inflation rate and local economic crisis were also there. So people were always inclined towards buying second-hand clothing from the flea markets and not the brands, because of course they were expensive and not for the lower middle income class of the country. So, key player in global second-hand textile trade, Pakistan is one of the largest importer, and we imported 433,651 metric tons of used clothing in 2023-2024 fiscal year only. And this is a 17% increase from the previous year. This is as per Pakistan Bureau of Statistics report. And interestingly, although we were going through the COVID lockdown, that's the only reason that we could find why the trade was impacted, because of course there were lockdowns. So that's why right after COVID, there has been a boom in the trade. And then a major destination for post-consumer textile waste, especially for Pakistan, is from European Union, and also other countries like USA, and also some Central Asian countries also export the clothing to Pakistan. In the fiscal year 2022 to 23, the market value of these imports was calculated to be around USD 24.22 million, and this increased in the fiscal year, rising to USD 40 million. So you see the trend, how it's increasing day by day, which indicates that people of Pakistan, they are more inclined towards the consumers are more inclined towards second-hand clothing, and there is a market. Second-hand textile trade contributes 38% of Karachi Export Processing Zone's exports. Now, I do believe we have a representative from Karachi Export Processing Zone as well who has joined us online. Thank you so much, sir. So he will be explaining about how this entire thing goes into exports and what is the role of Karachi Export Processing Zone in context of sorting, recycling, and the overall value chain of second-hand clothing, and how we are re-exporting these items back to different countries. Exports from Karachi Export Processing Zone reached approximately $200 million. And that's a very huge figure. Then creation of over 10,000 jobs, this entire sector, and especially with 50% filled by women. So why? Because this industry require very less technical skills. And so those with low skill level, they become part of this industry, and it's mostly by involving the handwork and adding value like stitching and repairing the clothing items or washing. So it doesn't require high tech skills. So that's why we have more women involved in this sector. So this is a graph, this is a world map indicating the inflows of second-hand textile clothing to Pakistan from different parts of the world. So second-hand, as per our study, I'll just briefly explain how we did. We did field surveys, key informant interviews, focus group discussions, and then field surveys were conducted not only in the flea markets, but also with Karachi Export Processing Zone. We are really grateful for their support. With the key informant interviews were conducted with representatives from Ministry of Climate Change and Ministry of Commerce. And also there were some other people, for example, who supported us in this entire value chain analysis, especially. There were people from Faisalabad as well. There were different CEOs from different local textile industry who are engaged in this sector. And then there were people from the flea markets and from the retail side also, and from the importer side as well, who supported us in gathering the data. So that data was analyzed based on different analysis like sustainability analysis, value chain analysis theory, and some other analysis using SPSS and Excel sheets was applied to gather results. So to develop a value chain analysis report and how this entire industry works. Now, as per the analysis, there's some critical analysis and some facts that we were able to gather. There are certain practices that, we do understand the fact that second-hand clothing market, it has minimum environmental impact in Pakistan. Why? Because as we say, in Urdu, kapda kabhi zaya nahi hota, which means that textile, whatever it is, clothing items, they are never wasted in Pakistan. So even normally we see in our households, it either becomes, if we are not able to wear it, it becomes part of the dusting, as a dusting clothing piece that can be used by house help to clean the houses, or it can be given as charity to house help or other lower poor of the society. Secondly, there's another thing that it also gets collected by informal recycling networks. So there's huge potential, and it is never wasted. It doesn't make its way to a landfill. Same is the case with secondhand clothing item. That's why it has minimum environmental implications. It is not reaching landfills. Then sometimes it gets mislabeled, the textile waste, especially because we are importing it from other countries. So in the context of secondhand or used textile, what happens is, because it doesn't get sorted and there is no proper criteria, even if it gets sorted, there's no international criteria that helps us to label textile waste separately and second-hand clothing items as separate before they are being exported to Pakistan and other countries. So this can lead to future waste management challenges, because if there is more textile waste being exported to countries like Pakistan and even other developing countries, it can create environmental implications in future if it is not managed properly. Plastic packaging. We know that when we visit Landa bazaars or flea markets, they are mostly selling us the items in plastic bags. Although there are certain regulations now, especially in place, especially in Islamabad, in Peshawar, to ban plastic bag, and especially the single-use plastic bag. But the challenge comes around when they do not have the alternatives available, and also the alternative tote bags, they are very expensive, or it raises the cost of the retailer. So that's why cost for the consumer. So that's why they're more inclined towards using plastic packaging bags, which creates environmental impact. Then around policy and regulations. So interestingly, we do not have any direct policy that relates to second-hand clothing. There's no direct policy indicating second-hand clothing textile trade in Pakistan, but we do have certain other policies that relate to the second-hand clothing trade. For example, our National Textile and Apparel Policy till 2025, it has discussed this aspect of how second-hand clothing can be regulated in Pakistan. But we do not have stringent regulations that create this kind of impact. If we are importing something from other countries, what should be the criteria, how it should be handled? There are no strict regulations. So there's a lot of gray area within this thing. There are no guidelines to distinguish textile waste. Of course, this I have mentioned. Consumer behavior. Consumer attitude is something that determines how much items we are importing from other countries. And because this is a consumer demand, that's why we are importing second-hand clothing items. Of course, we have inflation and economic crisis. That's why consumers are more inclined towards purchasing these items from flea markets. Umair, can you please minimize the above bar, as participants are unable to view the... Okay. So just I'll share a very brief overall value chain. So it starts from SHC import. SHC is second-hand clothing imports. We imported, and if you see it from top down, we import in bulks, right? The importers get bulk items, and then they do the initial unpacking. They are unpacked, and then they are sent to for the categorization. Categorization can be based on there is more demand in winter for second-hand clothing items. We understand there's more demand for jackets, for sweaters, for leggings, stockings, because that's more locally, that's expensive. So second-hand market provides that opportunity. Based on the seasonality, demand is there. Based on condition of the items we are getting for as part of second-hand markets. So they are good condition, they get sorted. And then there's grading also. Grade A pile means that they are in very good condition. And then price is depending upon that condition as well. For example, it doesn't require much repair. It doesn't require much cleaning. Usually lint is something that gets removed from second-hand clothing, especially in the retail markets also. And that's the first thing that is done, even in other areas. Then it is graded. Based on grade A is highest quality. Grade B, it requires a little bit of repair. Grade C is something that is that needs to be recycled or repaired at more level. And then if you see from left to right, the second area comes, this comes under pre-sorting. The second sorting takes place is in the retail markets, in the flea markets. So they also sorted based on the seasonality and also based on the fashion trends. For example, women clothing, youth clothing, and children clothing. Women and children are more common in this flea markets. And then they also sorted, for example, curtains will be different, rags will be sorted differently. And then also based on then they sell it to local consumers. They can also go with the grading in very high or large flea markets. Some grading is also done there as well. For example, Karachi Landa Bazaar is one of the biggest, so they do with the grading, initial grading. And then when it's sold to consumers, some of the items, when they are graded, they are also sent to the Karachi export processing zone by the importers. So there are importers, but I will leave this area here. I will let the representative from KPZ to talk about it more. But again, just basic understanding is that when we went there to KPZ, they said that we get it from the importers in the form of bales and stocks. And then in Karachi export processing zone, grading is again done to keep high quality clothing separate from low quality clothing. Some of the high quality clothing gets upcycled, the value is added to it, monograms are added, and then it gets re-exported to other countries. Then some other low graded quality clothing, they are either downcycled, shredded to become part of furniture fillings, or they are further shredded to make another recycled fabric from it. So this is the grading that we got to know about from Karachi export processing zone. What happens in the flea market, if you see the third area, that's recycling. When consumers get it, flea markets, in even the retailers in the flea markets, when they also sell the those textile pieces that are not being demanded by consumers, or that are not being prioritized by consumers. Sometimes those are very C grade quality clothes items that require a lot of repair, so they sell it at more cheaper price to the lower poor of the society, and by doing some repairs, and sometimes they even don't do the repairs, they just sell it to them. And then when consumers get it, consumers also, after wearing and after using it, they also downcycle it to rags either, or to, and they also give it to informal recycling network. For example, in Faisalabad, the informal recycling networks, they collect clothing items from household because they use it to make it as part of furniture filling, and that's very interesting. And then from Karachi export processing zone, in context of recycling, there's usually mechanical shredding. They shred it, and sometimes there's manual fiber separation as well by hand. Women will do the separation of fiber and to make it part of fillings. And then they also upcycle it with monograms to make it more good quality and sell it at a good price to other countries, re-export it. So what happens to post-consumer waste? I have explained it earlier. We give it as charity, or we give it to informal recycling networks. They then sell it as shredded clothing item to the other people who are making furnitures. And then that's how it gets recycled. So it closes the loop. So there's no waste of textile, secondhand textile in Pakistan. Then we reviewed some national policies. As I mentioned, there's no direct policy, but in our national textile and apparel policy, it encourages local recycling, but it also imposes stricter customs for used clothing. Why? Because they think that it can affect the local textile, first-hand textile market. Of course, if there's more inclination towards second-hand clothing, then definitely a local textile market will suffer. So that's why then there's also a trend of strict customs checks under national textile and apparel policy to prevent misdeclaration. Although within the policy, this has been indicated, but in practice, we did not observe it and we did not hear much about it. But let's see what our participants have to say. Then there is also custom acts and SROs are there in place, of course, trade for the trade of secondhand clothing. Finance bill, they did some good practice also. Last year, the 10% duty on secondhand clothing imports was repealed, and that's how it gave a relief to the retailers and importers especially. And then Pakistan Environment Protection Act promotes sustainable textile waste management. Although we do not have a direct plan on how textile waste should be managed, but this is something that's mentioned in the act, and so the action plan can be developed based on the guidelines in the act. Then we have environmental national hazardous waste management policy. It aligns with Basel Convention for safe disposal of hazardous waste. For example, if something is being imported and that contains hazardous waste, then it should be managed there and then. And also for the exporting countries, certain guidelines are being mentioned by within national hazardous waste management policy. But as far as implementation is concerned, this is a very new policy and there's no implementation plan as such in place. And then we have private sector. So there are many private sector companies who are engaged in recycling secondhand clothing items and selling it to the locals and to the local consumers. Now, there are challenges: limited access to reliable import data and exporter information, reluctance from retailers and importers due to skepticism about the project intentions. This is how the challenges we faced when we were working in the field. And inconsistent quality and categorization challenges during initial sorting stages, issues with plastic packaging waste, lack of strategic policies, and insufficient environmental guidelines. So that can affect this sector. And that is actually affecting this sector as well. As a way forward, we are proposing that circular economy principles and policies should be made part of the regulations. Environmental regulations needs to be strengthened, especially the recycling guidelines. We do not have formal recycling industry in place. Public-private partnerships, we need to promote it for this kind of effort in this sector. Collaboration and reforms. There's a gap within the ministries as well. Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Climate Change and Ministry of Finance. They all need to work together to address the challenges, especially when it comes to trade policies. Textile policy needs to be revised because there's hardly any mention of secondhand clothing, and also we need to provide more relief to the sector so that recycling gets encouraged, and workforce training programs needs to be developed. There are some strategic recommendations to red channel inspections needs to be strengthened, circular economy promotion, private sector partnerships, waste management solutions, and regional trade agreements to leverage international agreements for smoother cross-border trade in second-hand textiles. Thank you. I'm sorry for a bit longish presentation, but this is not even longish based on the kind of reports that we have developed and the kind of data we have gathered. This is a very brief overview of it. I do request the UNEP team if they would like to come in with their presentation, or if they have any comments, or if they want me to take the first reflections. But yeah, over to you, Beatrice.
Thank you so much, Zainab. Perhaps it would be good to invite the participants to share their inputs, but also perhaps to invite the representative from the Karachi market if there's any additional information or presentation. Sorry, and then after that, we can take back the floor to present the proposed structure of the criteria and the guideline.
Sure. Thank you, Beatrice. So we have Mustafa Sattar, sir. If you are online, sir, I would really request you to introduce yourself. And first of all, we are really grateful for your time and for you to join us online. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum, everybody. My name is Mustafa Sattar. I'm the CEO of a company called Retex Global. We're the largest grading facility in Pakistan and among the largest in the world. And we've been in this field for a long, long time. In Pakistan, we were the first used clothing grading facility established in 2004. Currently, there are 80 other facilities like us. And we process used clothing from the United States, Canada, and Europe. And we process, I would say, about north of 4 million pounds a day. And we're one of the global hubs. So the global hubs being, used to be Toronto, which is still pretty big, but it's scaled back a little bit. Houston is a global hub. Pakistan is a global hub. Dubai is as well, along with India and other countries are sort of getting into this trade. I think that, and just so you know, we've spoken to others. We had a German delegation here, and we visited Germany as well to give presentations as well, because I think the thinking globally is flawed, to be completely honest, and I think it's definitely flawed in Pakistan as well, but also internationally and in Europe as well, to be specific. We keep talking about recycling globally, which is great. but I think reuse has to be top of the list. The reason for that is the technology in recycling is very limited. So I'm sure you guys know about a company by the name of RenewCell um, in Europe, and there are others as well. And when we were talking to them about supplying them product, we realized that only 15%, 15% of the product was recyclable, and it could only be done with the help of subsidies. So that's all sort of defeats the purpose. And what ends up happening is you're having to find a home for this clothing anyways. The reason we say reuse is because we say that the entire infrastructure is already in place. It is functioning without any subsidies of any kind. Um, it is environmentally friendly in the sense that when we get clothing, and we are importers ourselves. So when we get clothing, we are able to reuse and recycle 99% of that product. That's the first thing. And we're able to do it without the use of gas, water, electricity, and any of those things which are would be concerning. So we're very environmentally friendly. We're able to process very large volumes, and there are very real markets across Africa and other places that need this clothing. And we think that recycling should come after that phase. So once we have shipped goods to Africa and other parts of the world, once they have used that product, is when recycling should come into play. Either you would set up those recycling facilities in Africa itself, or you would then ship the goods to Europe and other places to recycle the product. So that's our thinking, and that's something we have pitched along the line. The other thing is that when we talk about policy, this industry of reuse is beneficial to everybody involved, because when goods are shipped to us from Europe and America, that means they don't go into landfills in Europe and America. And they don't go into landfills in Pakistan either. So they're effectively just passed on to people who want to use that piece of clothing, for a longer period of time. Yes. Currently, if you look at the export processing zone, we have certain limitations. So at the moment, we're unable to expand. So new licenses are not being issued. If I want to expand tomorrow, purchase property and set up another facility, I would not be able to do that. That is something we've been lobbying to successive governments about. And because from a purely Pakistan perspective, we're environmentally friendly. We provide employment, and we bring in much needed dollars as well. So it's a win-win across the board, in our opinion. We have other issues as well. But for example, in terms of the global trade, if you look at the global trade, Africa being the largest market for us, there are lots of issues there as well. So politics plays a very important role. When there are elections in a country, they'll say, "Oh, we want to bring in new textile industry, and the used clothing industry is hurting that." And so then they'll try to either implement bans, or they will increase duties 2 and 300%. And again, it's all politics, and it hurts kind of what we're all trying to achieve, which is a more environmentally friendly in global environment. And we're all in this together, to be honest. So that's just a kind of overview of who we are and what we do. And I could go on and on. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take some.
Thank you so much. Can you please just highlight a bit about Karachi Export Processing Zone, how they're involved in re-exporting? Just briefly. I know there are certain practices that can't be publicly discussed, but just very briefly, generally, yeah.
Yeah, it's so when we talk about a grading facility, right? And I think, by the way, I'll just say this as well. If you just go to YouTube and type in Retex Global, you'll find about a 5-minute documentary we made exactly for this purpose. So if someone knew nothing about our industry, within 5 minutes they would know exactly what we do, how we do it, and what's involved. And we created this documentary to inform government officials as well. So effectively, a grading facility is just a very, very large warehouse with lots of, so in our facility, we have about 1,000 people working, about half of them are women, maybe even more than that. And what we do is we import clothing, and then and when we import it, it's one big mix, right? When we open it up, we end up creating about 350 different items. So, for example, if I just look and I separate t-shirts, and then I can go in and create multiple categories of t-shirts. I can say, round neck, V-neck, ladies, men, sizes, qualities, material. And so we separate it by all of those things. And then we export those to customers across the world. So Africa, South and Central America, Far East. So in very simple terms, that's what we do. There are multiple checks that we do over here so that there is minimum waste where this clothing ends up. So very often you will hear in the global media, you'll see a picture of lots of waste on a beach somewhere. And we were talking to the representatives in Germany as well to try and explain to them that this is something that is not common at all. And the reason is you simply have to use logic, right? So when I ship goods, let's say I ship goods worth $30,000 to a customer. He ends up paying another $30,000, for example, and this will differ from country to country, but he'll pay another, let's say, $30,000 in duties in their country. So all of a sudden, these goods are worth $60,000. So he wants a very specific product. Every country requires very specific items. So I can't just send them anything. So that when you see that picture on a beach, that basically implies that someone has sent them all sorts of goods and they can only use, 20-30% of them, and the rest of them are no good. And so they have to dump it. That's actually not the reality. So basic economics will sort that problem out, and it does do that. So if I'm paying $60,000, I want a very specific product and a very specific quality. Otherwise, I will be out of business. So that's kind of, a little bit of what we do and how we do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for a very detailed discussion, and thank you for pointing out the link on the YouTube. I think that we will all be interested to look into that and learn about the best practices. But thank you also for pointing out the certain harsh realities that, of course, not just your company, but also other companies who are engaged in these imports and recycling must be facing. So I'm really glad that we have representation from KPZ and from a company that's actually there in practice. And although because we are sitting in Islamabad, so my team has been there in Karachi, but so many of us, we don't even know what's happening there. So I think it's a brilliant idea to connect through things like the YouTube video and other socials, and how the company is engaging. And thank you for joining us once again. But I will be requesting you to remain with us if it's possible for you, because we require your inputs for the criteria development guidelines as well that we are going to be working out just now after this discussion. So in the meanwhile, we have also been joined by a representative from Ministry of Commerce, Mr. Umar Farooq. Thank you so much for joining us. Sir, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, just very briefly, I would request you to, if you can highlight, because we have done our study, and based on our study, there is no direct policy that addresses the second-hand textile trade. We have National Textile and Apparel Policy, but there's no separate or direct policy that addresses this sector. Although this is a huge sector, and interestingly, based on our findings, this is a very circular sector, as there's minimum waste being generated at the moment. But there are certain challenges. There's a mention of red channelism in the National Textile Policy that indicates that this sector needs to be regulated as well. But if there are more regulations in this sector, then as Mr. Sitar was also mentioning, there are more duties. If they get involved, then the sector gets affected. We do not have formal recycling industry in Pakistan, and so it's affecting us. So, sir, your first reflections on how Ministry of Commerce deals with this thing, and what is the viewpoint of Ministry of Commerce? Over to you, please. So if you can switch on your mic, please. Thank you.
Am I audible?
Sorry. No. नहीं sir, वो on था.
Thank you. Thank you so much, madam. This is Umar Farooq, Section Officer Textile, Ministry of Commerce. Madam, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. Madam, as far as your question is concerned, I would like to say, keeping in view the latest regulations and the policy initiatives taken by European Union and the other legislative measures taken across the globe, Ministry of Commerce is working on all those policy measures and regulations in order to frame some sort of law, a legal instrument, a local, you can say, the local laws which can regulate the trade of used textiles. We are working on it, we are on it, and we are trying to make best out of it. And we shall definitely share the first draft and then the final approved draft with you as well. Thank you.
I think that's a huge development, sir.
I would like to jump in here, Ms. Zainab. Is that okay? Like I have a couple of questions from yourself as well as from Mustafa Sitar Saab. So is
Sorry,
it the right time?
Yes, please. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Mukeet, and I am currently in Australia and working with a very large textile recycling company. We are actually manufacturers of non-woven, and I have this education. I got my PhD in textile recycling from University of Wollongong, and have been working in textile sector and academia as well for last 12 years. So is that enough for anything else?
No. Thank you. Please go ahead with your questions, please.
Yeah, thanks. So quite recently, I was sitting with the CEO of Good Sammys in Australia, and they said like they were exporting 6,000 tons of textile waste to Pakistan, and like they were giving away anything that was like not worth sending to any other place, right? So with all the due respect, this comment is coming from when Mustafa Saab said that we are getting all the specific products, right? So what I came to know after sitting with her, she mentioned that like 6,000 tons of textile waste used to be going to Pakistan, and nothing was sorted here, right? Whatever it was, I mean, whatever the quality of that textile waste was, that was going to Pakistan, right? So that brings me to the point, I know labor is very, very expensive here. And as you all might know, there are no, specific sorting facilities or technologies at the moment available. And at least in Australia, there are a couple of them, but they are not very advanced and developed. So in the mainstream, they are not being used as of now. So whatever textile waste they get, they sometimes they pick like the very high quality stuff for the op shops here, and rest of that goes to like countries in Pakistan, India, Africa. These were the main places that it's going. So my question here is, when you say like we are getting all this very specific used textile or textile waste, so from my conversation with her, it came up they're sending anything, literally anything.
Thank you very much for pointing that out, and I would say for validating one of our findings. I think this is something we have also come up, that whatever we are receiving from other countries, it's usually not pre-sorted. But I think Mustafa Saab was talking about his own company. Maybe that's the case with some companies, and maybe that's not the case with other companies. Mustafa Saab, if you would like to respond to that, or
yeah, absolutely. So I think some clarity is required here. So what happens is, even in the developed world, a lot of used clothing ends up going into landfills. So that's important to understand even today, despite having grading facilities like this. In the developed world, clothing effectively, once you've used it, they end up donating it to charities. Okay? And then charities can either sell that product to local players, to thrift stores, or the charities can have their own thrift stores. So when they say they send anything and everything, they mean likely that they send anything and everything that has been given away or donated. And so it's in the developed world, far less of that product is going to be reworn, right? Because, and that comes down to economics, right? Per capita incomes and so on and so forth. So when they say they send anything and everything and it's all waste, that's waste to them, right? It's not waste to everybody else. That clothing can be reworn in Africa, and it is reworn in Africa and other parts of the world. So I think that's the clarity that's required. So there's no home for that clothing in the developed world, and yet there may be a home for that clothing somewhere else in the world, which is poorer, right? So that's, I think, maybe what they're getting at. So lots of used clothing is imported from Australia as well. In fact, we do some from Australia as well, less, but we do. And so, even in the West, there are certain items that they will take out because they can resell them. For example, when you look at items like very high quality product, or you look at, when they say vintage clothing, for example, those things can be sold in the West, and they are being resold in the West. So when it comes to Pakistan, our advantage, so places like Pakistan, our advantage is the cheap labor, which you correctly said. It comes down to, again, economics. We are able to pick some of that very good clothing. And what's really interesting about this trade is that vintage product and that very, very good quality product comes from the West, is graded here, and is sent right back to the West. So it is still profitable for everybody involved. Which is pretty interesting. But, I think, the other thing is that I think we have to think about here is, because we're all sitting in Pakistan and we all have a stake in this country, not only do we contribute economically, environmentally, in this industry, or due to this industry, I think we have to realistically look at how can a country like Pakistan benefit from this. So we have this huge industry, and we ourselves don't value it. So we keep talking about new textiles. This industry has to be looked at as complementary to new textiles. How do we make it grow? How do we do more of it? Because other areas in the world, for example, Dubai, India, Malaysia, are all promoting this industry, and we are not. We are actually doing the opposite. We're saying that you can't expand. We're increasing taxation on people running these facilities. We should be doing the exact opposite of that. And that's sort of things, which is why this conversation, which is why I'm here in this conversation. I think that it is very important for all of us to understand from the real players on the ground doing this business, what are the issues that we have and how do we fix those going forward so we can grow this industry, which will benefit not only Pakistan, but the global community.
Thank you so much, Mustafa Saab. So I think it's very important to mention here, and one of the key points that some of it gets re-exported to, and that's where industries like yours and so many other recycling industries in Karachi are playing their important role. So Hasnain, please go ahead with your comments.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for giving this opportunity to join this thing. And let me introduce myself first. I'm Hasnain Lilani. I'm a sustainable textile researcher and founder of Datini Fibers, an upcycling farm. I used to work for denim industry as a head of research and design innovation for last 10 years. And 8 years ago, we started this company. And our main focus is on post-consumer waste recycling. So we were the first one who supported like a Sweden-based chemical recycling plant. And we supported them for the waste, for the knowledge, industrial knowledge as well. And we are doing by ourselves here, recycling mechanical recycling system and providing the services and the solutions for the industry. Meanwhile, we are also the part of the circular economy, and we support it for the sharing data with the Dutch government. And we are also the member of like IWTO, and we are also the part of reverse resource, trying to create a solution on the post-consumer and the pre-industrial waste of textile waste. We are partnering with some key players of the industries. So actually, it's a bit introduction, and I would like to share my perspective on this thing after having this conversation. And I really agree with Mustafa Saab that he said that about the challenges of the post-consumer industry, and government has to integrate and understand the challenges that we are facing. So we are not inside the zone; we are outside the zone, and we are working outside in the because we thought that it's a more appropriate way because we cannot find any new license or space inside to work inside in the zone. But we have like a possibility to do that thing. But the problem is the duty and all the things. So as I was a part of a lot of research conferences and the partners with research around the world, especially in Sweden and Nordic countries. So we have come out, everyone was promoting circular economy, but in Pakistan has a potential because we are used to do that thing, but unfortunately it was not in limelight. So I've been to meet a lot of CFOs and CEOs in the international level. I was in Netherlands and I had a conversation with Passion for Good organization. But unfortunately, Pakistan was not in the limelight for that solutions as well. So the question here is like, right now I'm in the industry, I'm facing the problem with as mentioned about the red channel thing. My containers are stuck in port for last 4 months. And it was highlighted because it was mentioned that these are the new clothes. Unfortunately, the clothes were coming from the charity. It has a tax, but as per the law book, it says it has a tax, so we can't do anything. So I think these are the small problems which needs to be clarified at the government level, so which can support the textile industry who are major focused on sustainability. And we are one of the heroes of the Pakistan climate change, and we worked with climate change ministry as well. So we are facing these problems. So I think needs to be a solution should come from the government level. And also one of the problem we also face is about, we were the part of NIC Islamabad and we were the part of cohort 12. And but we try to educate and we try to ask some support from the industry at the ministry level. There are like a lot of appreciable, like the people appreciate us, but they never come forward to support in terms of finance or anything. So this is like this needs to be clarified on this part. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hasnan. And yes, I think that's one of the key challenges that startups in Pakistan and SMEs in Pakistan are facing. And although we are working closely with UNEP, not just UNEP Geneva office, but also UNEP regional offices around how SMEs can be supported, especially who are involved in recycling. And that's a different project. But thank you for raising this out, and we'll definitely look forward to engage you further and discuss a way forward. Thank you for that. So Mr. Umar Farooq, and if anyone online wants to share any other reflections, then I'd request Dr. Uzma as well. Your first reflections on the study, please. Itishab, can you share the mic, please?
Dr. Uzma Zia here. I'm associated with the think tank PIDE. I'm working there as senior research economist. I've attended these lectures, just now seen the presentation, and I have seen some points which I have noted here. That first of all, we should identify, do we need this stuff here in Pakistan? And what are the risks associated with it? Although in the first presentation, I saw some of the risks were addressed, but as we proceed further, I haven't seen that there are some risks. Maybe along the day we can have something on that. And then second thing which I have noticed is there are some points For example, as Amna told that the regulatory structure of this the containers which are coming and how they are coming here, that is not very much defined, and there is some gray areas in them. So we need to identify what are the those gray areas, and we need to see the policy for that. And in the policy slide, I noticed that the textile policy, which is till 2025, it has there is abolition of 10% duty on the second-hand stuff. And on the other hand, there is an SRO which was given in 23, which addresses that there should be a quality textile should come in Pakistan. So the policy mismatch is present there. This should be addressed. I think you can notice this point. Yes. And then, of course, there's a lot of employment that we are generating. And a person from Karachi also identified there's a licensing process also there, because he said when we have to bring more things in, then maybe we don't get the license. So there is some regulatory structure going on, something is there, but the structure should be addressed more clearly. I will give more points along the day.
Thank you, Dr. Uzma. Mr. Umar Farooq, there's just one comment I forgot to mention it earlier, but you mentioned that the draft is ready.
No, madam. We are working on it. I
Okay.
said we are preparing a legal instrument in order to regulate all of this stuff, the used textile, the circular economy, the sustainability, all these, you can say the terminologies, all those things which are basically new for Pakistan in these days. We are working on it. We are basically trying to incorporate all of these things in new textile and apparel policy, which we are framing for 25-30. And basically that textile and apparel policy 25-30 would be a legal instrument in order to regulate all of those things. This was my point, basically.
That's an interesting development, sir, and we also are very much looking forward to whenever it gets announced, whenever it gets ready. But I think that will definitely be creating an impact in this sector. But just one comment, and then maybe we can start with we can also take online participants, or maybe we can start with the criteria presentation. Just one comment that I hope the policy will not negatively affect the second-hand clothing recyclers. Mustafa Saab is also here. I hope it does not create a hurdle in importing the textiles, and it does not affect the market. So just that's my comment and feedback, because I believe this is one of those markets and sectors that are actually very circular and that have actually a lot of potential in the country. As most of us have pointed out, that because we are not involved in marketing this sector a lot, so that's why it's not gaining that much positive image in the country and internationally as well. But I think once that's done, it can create a very potential positive impact. So just one comment. I hope it is not going to negatively affect the sector.
Not definitely that.
Okay.
Mustafa can best might describe that there are a few bindings from European Union as well on used clothing. But if Mustafa can elaborate a few points on legal bindings from European Union on used clothing, it would be very, very beneficial for all of the participants. If Mustafa, can you please elaborate the legal bindings or legal limitations which European Union has basically imposed on Pakistan for used clothing?
So the understanding that I have is when the German delegation came to us, and then we visited them in Berlin, the discussion was around that the European Union was looking to ban the export of our raw material now out of Europe. When they came and saw our facilities, they completely turned around and said, "This is shocking. We didn't know this was happening," because our point was very simple, that grading is done in third world countries mostly. right? So we are there not only to support Pakistan, but to support people like the European Union and the US. If they were to put a ban, what would end up happening is more used clothing would go into landfills in Europe, which was the purpose of our visit to Berlin, to explain to them that this would be detrimental. It would actually harm the European Union, not help. So that is my knowledge in terms of the discussions going around in the EU. We suggested to them, and if there is a European Union representative here, I would also suggest one more thing. We said to them the exact opposite. We said, if you have a new textile producing country, so take Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, China, Vietnam, so on and so forth, and if any of those countries assists or helps in the circular environmental kind of goals that we're trying to achieve, then those countries should get higher quotas to sell in new textiles, sorry, in the Western world. So for example, in Europe, we have GSP plus for new textiles. If Pakistan can prove that we process a lot more used clothing, for example, then our GSP plus quota should go up. It's sort of like, environmental they have like, carbon credits. So we were proposing to them that it should be something similar to that, because you have to encourage people to enter this industry. You have to encourage people to grow in this industry, and that's how it's going to happen. But we can't just rely on people making their own individual decisions. I've encouraged karoge through policy, both in Pakistan and the European Union. You will find results.
Sorry, I would jump in here. Do you have time?
So Beatrice and Jaya, can we take more comments? Or I think we can,
please do. Yes, this is very, very fruitful. Yes, please give the floor to all of the participants.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I may sound like a devil's advocate because I'm putting a very different perspective from outside. So have we ever considered about the impact of getting all this waste to Pakistan? I mean, there is a positive. I'm not negating that positive impact, but how it's negatively impacting the environment. The first thing I think we need to find and record and calculate is the chemical contamination. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if we look at this from the environmental perspective in terms of carbon footprints, so what are the carbon footprints when the textile is being transported from one place to another place, especially from another part of the world to Pakistan, and it is going back again? The third thing is from hygiene point of view. So we all know how dengue virus came into Pakistan. That was through the waste coming in to Pakistan, and how there are a lot of allergen pathogens that come through the waste, textile waste, or maybe other forms of waste to Pakistan. And then a very important thing is dependency on foreign waste. You mentioned like there are 10,000 people who are employed with this business only in Karachi, and 50% of them are women. So, now that means we are dependent on the waste that we are getting from outside. And if by any, at any time, if that is stopped, like all those people will no more be, employed, right? So from circular economy perspective, yeah, I'm a biggest supporter of that. And let me tell you, when I started PhD in 2017, a lot of people said, you are in textiles, you are a textile engineer, and there are a lot of fancy things in textiles. Why are you going to this recycling thing, right? So I just want to say that I'm a very passionate advocate of circular economy, textile recycling, and all that thing. But that doesn't mean that anyone want to make Pakistan a dumping ground for everyone. If it was so precious and so priceless thing, it won't be coming to Pakistan. Everyone will be recycling, and everyone will be, doing it somewhere else, right? So circular economy, that's a very good concept, but that doesn't mean that I'm taking everything to my home and recycling, and that is becoming a kind of bin, dumping bin. And Yeah, so recycling and circular economy means that we are recycling and our own waste. We are, using our own plastic waste, our own textile waste, and upcycling it, making good products out of it. So this is my perspective. I am basically attached with a very big company. We are textile recyclers in Australia, and we have huge capacities. Like on everyday basis, we are recycling 15 to 20 tons of textile waste and putting them back into like non-wovens product. So this is my perspective and how I look at this thing while sitting, outside Pakistan.
Thank you very much. I
So
think yes.
if I may just clarify, I think Mukeet, there's some misunderstanding here clearly. This is not garbage, as in we're not importing garbage and dumping it into landfills. This is not what we're doing. So when you have, for example, a t-shirt that you purchase in a store in Australia and you wear it for 1 year and then you donate it to a charity, it comes to us, we process it, and we extend the life of that clothing. We send it to Africa and it is worn for another 3 years. So when you extend the life of a clothing, of any item of clothing, you are being environmentally friendly, correct? This is not being dumped. And the reason why you're not doing this in the developed world is because that process of separating that clothing is expensive in the Western world. So other countries would not do this because they can't afford to do it. So you have to find a cheaper place to do it where labor costs are low. So all we're really doing is redirecting that clothing. That is all we are doing in a very simple sense. Now, when you reuse clothing, there will be less clothing in the world. The process of making new clothes is not environmentally friendly. It leaves a carbon footprint, a much bigger carbon footprint, a much, much bigger carbon footprint. So while you're looking at the transport side and what carbon footprint that has, new textiles has that same carbon footprint. When you make a piece of clothing and you import certain items from other parts of the world, and you make a brand new t-shirt sitting in Pakistan or Bangladesh, you import those items, you process them, use lots of water, lots of electricity, leave a carbon footprint, and then you ship that same clothing to the West. So that carbon footprint increases.
I would like to jump in, and can I jump in if I'm allowed?
So I think there are two participants who have raised hands. The same participants, Hasnan and Mukeet. Yeah, I think, but you can jump in, but I think let's keep the debate.
I just need to add a few points regarding how this conversation is going to support the textile industry of Pakistan. Okay, the first of thing I would like to add a point with Mukeet, but before that I want to make because there is a new EPR like resolutions or like legislation is coming on by European Union, and also the digital passport. So definitely the European Union does not have that capability to recycle all the waste they are like buying, because the economy of the textile industry is like this year, as per the Textile Exchange report, 130 million tons of fiber has been produced, and out of that 60% more of them was polyester. So if we connect the recycle industry in that perspective, we are just using around 20 to 30% of the waste and bringing back into a new life cycle. So actually we are supporting the reusing of that waste fiber and supporting in the new resources. So actually we are preserving the new resources. We are not creating any problem. So the one point is that it needs to be clarified here as well, that the waste which is coming in Pakistan, it's not just for like this perspective to dump here. It has a potential to go further and create a revenue out of it. And when we were trying to bring RenewCell, so we were trying to bring the technology in Pakistan, not just to be the part of the supply chain system, but unfortunately the legislation and the restrictions of the European Union was much more focused to support circular economy in European zone rather than going further elsewhere. So now they see the RenewCell has been bankrupt. So they raised the funding of around 100 million and then they went bankrupt. And actually the supply chain of the Renew Cell was dependent on Pakistan.
Thanks, Aslan, for the clarification. And yes, I think this point here is that in Pakistan, although Mukit, your point regarding the allergens and environmental concerns are very valid and pertinent, and that's why we developed the hazardous national waste management policy in 2022, because there was a case of 800 containers, the poisonous containers that we received, and they were dumped in Karachi, and that caused so many deaths there, right? So yeah, that's why we have it in place. Yes, there's a hand raised, please, sir. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Giel Berends. I work for the European Commission, and I just thought maybe it's interesting to give a short update on where we stand with EU legislation, because I understand there are some questions. First of all, many thanks for organizing this workshop, and thanks that I can take part in it. It's much appreciated, and for all the interesting points that were raised already. I think maybe it's good to highlight two things, two pieces of legislation that we have recently adopted and are in the process of negotiating, linked to textiles, because as highlighted by previous speakers, a big concern for the EU is that we are exporting material which is sometimes not clear whether it is used textiles or textile waste. Therefore, we have recently adopted a new waste shipment regulation. This is regarding all kinds of waste, so not only textile waste, but one of the new export rules is that we want to make sure that the waste that is exported is treated in an environmentally sound manner. So there's no issue with waste being exported, but we have to have the guarantee that it's treated in an environmentally sound way. So we have informed all third countries, so partner countries of the EU, to indicate whether they still want to continue importing waste in the future, and which waste streams to continue importing. And then we will make an EU list of approved destinations. So they have to prove that they can deal with this waste stream in an environmentally sound way. That's a way to guarantee that waste that is exported from the EU doesn't cause environmental issues or health issues outside of the EU. So that's one thing, but that's really targeting textile waste, not used textiles. And then another piece of legislation which we are currently negotiating with our Parliament and the Member States is regarding the Waste Framework Directive. And there we are trying to make sure that it's clearer whether we export, to make the distinction between used textiles and textile waste better. So at the moment, sometimes there are questions of whether the material that is being exported, that is labeled as used textiles from the EU, is actually 100% used textiles. So is it 100% reusable? So this is colleagues of mine working on that, but the key point of this is that we have proposed to include a requirement to pre-sort the collected textiles within the EU, to make a clear distinction between what is reusable and what is waste, and that the waste textiles are exported as waste and not as used textiles. And then used textiles can be exported as products, like is the current situation. But products that have not undergone this sorting should be exported as textile waste, because it's not guaranteed that everything can be reused. So sorry for taking a bit of time, but I just thought it was useful maybe to highlight these 2 points. And then, yeah, also the link with this project is that for us it's really interesting to see what you've discussed already, but hopefully will be discussed further as well, is to understand better what happens to used textiles and textile waste once it's arrived in Pakistan. So that's really something that we are very interested in, to get a better understanding of this. Many thanks.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the clarity. I think it was much needed, and so yeah, I mean, the Pakistanis definitely have their concerns, and different sector representatives have their concerns. I can also see, Dr. Javeria, your comments. Yes, we are all reading your comments. Pakistan, why it should become part of Scope 3 emissions? Well, Pakistan, if I can respond on behalf of Ministry of Climate Change as well. The Global Change Impact Study Center, it's a technical part of Ministry of Climate Change, and they are the ones who look into the Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions and monitoring and conducting GHG emission inventory in Pakistan. We did not have technical capacities before to even conduct our inventory on the Scope 2 emissions. But now the Ministry of Climate Change, with help from different development partners, they are upskilling this GCISC, and they are now they have started working on Scope 2 emissions as well. So although like in the near future, it will be a challenge for Pakistan and to address that, Scope 3, it's very difficult, very tough, and it's not just Pakistan, but other countries as well who are going through the same challenge. But yeah, I mean, with the passage of time, there are strict regulations coming in, but that's also a requirement of the global north and developed countries to secure their own countries as well. But of course, from our end, from Pakistan, from global south, and from developing countries perspective, it will take time. And but we have to prepare ourselves for the future that we foresee. And we are in a situation of environmental and crisis and climate emergency. Generator on ho raha? Yes, on? Okay. So apologies for this disruption. That's one of the environmental crises we are facing. Load shedding here. I hope the online participants are able to hear me. So yeah. But I do request if we can keep our comments for the next section, because we do require all of your inputs for the criteria development. And one important thing that we are doing also, Umar Saab, we are going to work out on a criteria that how it should be in Pakistan. And as part of this project, we are also going to be proposing a criteria, global criteria, how second-hand clothing and how textile waste should get segregated. So I think it will be a challenge, but some of the key recommendations will be very helpful in moving forward. I do request all the participants here to give their feedback, their input, whatever they feel should be, and not just participants here in person, but online participants also, to please go ahead with your feedback. But before that, I request the UNEP team if they can give a brief presentation around criteria development, and then we can move forward with the group work activity. Yes.
Can I take the floor now, Zainab?
Yes, please, Beatrice.
Thank you so much. And I just want to take a brief moment to thank everyone for these rich discussions. This is exactly what we wanted, and we really benefit from all your expertise and views. So what we're going to present now is just a proposed structure. By no means this is the final word, but this is just suggested as a way to help facilitate the discussions and help and get your guidance basically on how we can take this forward. We have been taking notes of the inputs that you have been sharing regarding the challenge it is for a global criteria and a guideline to go forward, and I'm learning a lot from all of you as experts. So we're going to be sharing, as I said, just as a way to facilitate the discussions that will take place after this in person and also online. So I'll share my screen and I'll invite my colleague Jaya to walk us through this presentation. Just please let me know when this is visible to everyone.
It is visible.
Okay, please, Jaya, come in.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. A very good morning and good afternoon to all of you in Pakistan and everybody joining online. Thank you to SDPI for their very insightful presentation just ahead before this, and also for the fruitful discussion so far. I think it's a great start to the deep dive that we hope to have today. Before we get into that component of today's meeting, I would just like to take a few moments to set the objectives for the meeting and to speak about our ideas so far based on our work in 4 partner countries that this project is being implemented in, specifically also based on inputs that we are receiving from the ground, from the different markets in Pakistan, in other countries as well. So what we aim to do today is to focus really on that technical component of the project, which is on the criteria and guideline. The criteria are more focusing on better differentiating between what used textiles, or rather reusable textiles, is versus textile waste, and a guideline that can help us determine the suitability to trade between different countries goods as used textiles. So this is the 2 components that we want to have a deep dive on today. And at the outset of my few slides that I would like to present, I would want to share an observation, and this is something that I also heard from participants earlier in the discussion, that so far what we have observed, and something very important to note, is that waste is very much an economic concept more than a material concept. Of course, there are very clear distinctions between what waste is and what a reusable textile it is at the material level. But more than this, like one of the participants suggested, it is about what a certain actor considers waste and whether or not another actor still considers it waste, or whether there is value derivation to be drawn from that specific material or product. So with this in mind, the criteria that we are going to be speaking about are more related to the quality and other aspects related to the product that support the sorting, whereas we would also like to speak about some enabling conditions that are more linked to the guideline, which support the overall enabling environment to make reduce waste generation and maximize value derivation. So with this in mind, we have categorized the structure based on the observations we have on sorting practices so far. As you can see on the slide, there is a very basic sorting that happens before any item gets shipped to a third country as used textiles, which is to distinguish between used textiles and textile waste itself, because these are 2 separate HS codes, 6309 and 6310. So 6309 is the category we are focusing on, which is theoretically supposed to be only reusable textiles, and 6310 is very explicitly waste. So we're focusing right now at the category 6309, and within this category, we'd like to better understand what are the conditions and what are the specific parameters that lead to waste generation, even while theoretically a certain bale is intended to be entirely reusable. Now, after this basic distinction between reusable textiles and textile waste, there are different levels of sorting that happen. Some of this sorting happens before the shipment leaves a certain country and arrives in Pakistan, for example. And then there are levels of sorting that happen after the shipment reaches Pakistan. Basic schematic diagram is on this slide, as you can see, which is from the point at which it is imported into Karachi. Now, there have been mixed observations. While some sources tell us that there is absolutely no sorting that happens before the goods reach Pakistan, there are also other sources that tell us that there is a primary level of sorting based on the type of clothing and the quality of clothing. That is the point 1.1 and 1.2 mentioned on this slide. The type of clothing being what type exactly, like, whether these are t-shirts, whether these are lowers for adults, for children, this kind of sorting on the type. And then another one, even within these categories, based on the quality. If something is an excellent quality, sometimes it's called grade A, sometimes it's called grade 1. And then there are subcategories within this. So this is it's unsure for us at the moment to what extent the clothes arrive sorted to Pakistan specifically. And this is something we would like to understand during this workshop today. And another parameter is then once it enters the country, there are three avenues that the clothing could go into. One is processing for re-exports, and this includes several upcycling processes. There is also diversion to domestic markets where it's resold for use for consumers to purchase. And then there is the recycling aspect as well. Now, within the re-export and diversion to domestic markets, there is another level of sorting or categorization that happens based on salability. And here it depends on a variety of factors, including the type of clothing, of course, but also the branding, the condition based on the quality, the color, the contamination, the material and its construction, and so on. So there are several factors here. And one of the objectives of this discussion today is for us to understand what are the priorities when it comes to Pakistan, which of these factors influence the decision making on what is suitable for re-exports, what is suitable for domestic sale, and even within domestic sale, which are the most desirable items, and are there some items that are consistently not desirable for the Pakistani market, which then would eventually result in waste if there are consistently undesirable items being imported into the country. So I understand that there are mixed opinions about this, and this is exactly why we find this very useful to come together to validate some findings, to add some new perspectives to what we have found so far, and so on. Now, another aspect would be in terms of value addition. If there are certain value addition practices that are most commonly undertaken within the KEPs, there could be measures taken to match the imports in alignment with these capacities to upcycle, to resell, to re-export, and to recycle. And this would be another objective that we would achieve by understanding the priorities and requirements within the operations taking place once the bales arrive in Pakistan. So that is about criteria. Now, in order for the criteria for sorting and for each of the operations happening in the different aspects of the used textiles value chain within the country to be successful, we need some kind of enabling conditions to exist. And this is where we go into the discussion on guidelines. Beatrice, if I could ask you to please switch to the next slide. Thank you. In our observation so far and how we are thinking at the moment together with our partners in each of the countries that we are working in, including with SDPI and Pakistan, we have been thinking of the different elements that are part of this enabling conditions that enable sorting to maximize value addition and to minimize waste generation. And we have structured this along two pillars. The first one is about country readiness, which includes infrastructure and institutional capacity, as well as a second pillar, which is very focused on sorting and quality assurance. Going a little bit into pillar one, here, what is important in element one, which is about the trade dynamics and infrastructure, is for the country to have an understanding of where it stands in the global trade flow of used textiles. Is it a destination country alone? Is it a transit hub? Is it a mix of the two? In Pakistan's case, it appears to be a mix of the two. And we would like to hear your insights on to what extent its role as a transit hub is influencing its imports versus to what extent its role as a destination country is influencing its imports and the composition of the imports of used textiles. When it comes to environmental capacity and pollution risk, this is also varied across the different kinds of country profiles we are working with. In Pakistan, the pollution risk from used textiles waste seems to be low in terms of the data availability so far, and in terms of the processes that have been mentioned even in this meeting and in our analysis so far. However, there are pollution risks associated with the growing quantity and volume of products coming into the country as used textiles, And this is something we want to be proactive about rather than reactive about. So assessing the environmental capacity and pollution risk is a second element. The legal and regulatory landscape, which is parts of it have already been discussed about, what are the terms used to define this trade, what are the conditions under which it should be, the customs regulations and so on, but also the standards in terms of employment, the standards in terms of environmental performance. These are all part of the legal and regulatory landscape. And finally, the community and social benefits. In the end, we want all stakeholders, especially the most vulnerable stakeholders in the value chain, to get a fair share of the value that is being generated from the trade in each of these different processes, be it for re-exports, be it for sale in the domestic markets, or for recycling. And as we know, in the global south and more generally, there tend to be sensitivities and opportunities to better the working conditions for processes that are associated with circularity. This can be about waste segregation, this can be about repairs and upcycling. In Pakistan, there could be a certain level of formality or informality. In another country, it could be different. So what we want to understand is to what extent the mechanisms exist for community and social benefits to be shared fairly and equitably within the value chain. Now, coming quickly to the second pillar, which is about the sorting and quality assurance. Here, one thing that we observed, and I seem to also understand from the discussions here, is the lack of clarity about what is coming into the country. Sometimes it's very clear what's in the bales. Sometimes there is a lack of clarity whether the retailers or the importers are aware of the contents within the bale. Perhaps in Pakistan, some retailers are fully aware, but there could be there could be instances that there is lack of clarity and information on what's in the bales, and the quality control then. Based on the requirements within the country, is there a feedback mechanism? Is there a complaint management mechanism? If sometimes what comes into the country is not according to what is in demand or what is desirable in the country. A final observation is that across the different sorting houses within the country or outside the country, there isn't a harmonized way of quality grading. There isn't a harmonized guideline on what gets called category or grade A and grade B and so on. And there isn't a harmony also among whether or not it's even called grade ABC, because there are 5 to 6 different ways we already have seen of how these quality gradings happen. And there could be opportunities in harmonizing this so that across the value chain of used textiles among the different trading partners, there's a shared understanding of what is considered a certain level of quality, and setting some kind of minimum quality requirements could be useful, or rather defining what and how it is defined across the different regions. It could be useful. So I will pause here, and there is a detailed document about this that we have tried to put together to facilitate the discussion moving forward. But for now, I would pause, and if there are any questions, if there are any discussion points at this time, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, I wish a very fruitful discussion in the next segment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jaya. Umair, can I please request you to display the criteria document for everyone to see? Thank you, Jaya, for very comprehensively explaining each and every step. So for the participants who are sitting here and even online, especially those who are in person here, please feel free to comment, even if it's in Urdu or Punjabi or English. Feel free. I can help to translate it for those who have joined us from UNEP and EU side. And, just for the, especially from Ministry of Commerce, सर जो अभी बात हुई है वो एक ट्रांजिट हब पाकिस्तान है, ठीक है, और काफी सारी यहाँ पे चीजें आती हैं और काफी ज्यादा यहाँ से जाती हैं. क्राइटेरिया हम बना रहे हैं कि किस तरह से ये जो सेकंड पाकिस्तान में जो चीजें आती हैं उस प्री सॉर्ट नहीं होता कभी कभी, और हमें पता नहीं होता उसमें क्या चीजें आ रही हैं. सो आप हमें बताइए कि क्या कोई ऐसी रेगुलेशन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉमर्स के साइड से या हो सकती है, या कोई ऐसे पैरामीटर्स हैं आपके अपने जो इस क्राइटेरिया में हेल्प करते हैं? जैसे हमें पता है कि सेकेंड हैंड क्लोथिंग आइटम्स में कौन कौन से कपड़े आ रहे हैं, कौन कौन सी चीजें आ रही हैं, लेकिन उसमें वेस्ट भी आ रहा है। तो क्या कुछ ऐसा है, मैकेनिज्म है आपका मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉमर्स में? माइक अगर आप ऑन कर लें।
Thank you, madam. No, there is no such mechanism in place. I think the criteria can't be defined by the middleman. I think that can be defined by the person who is basically going to process that waste. Madam, if you imply this scheme of thing that the person who is going to purchase that waste, who is going to import that waste, he is the best in a position to decide what should be the criteria he is going to import. I think the middleman are the government institutions, are the institutions like SDPI, or other institutions like UNDPI. They are not in a position to define criteria. Criteria is a thing which is basically the determinants on the basis of which you are going to purchase something. And this can't be defined by any third person. I think this is the mere right of the person who is going to purchase that thing.
So that's why we are asking you directly. UNEP and you are not getting in touch with those people. We are getting in touch with you.
Madam, this can be the best possible practice could be we can fetch comments and views from those people who are in Faisalabad, in KPZ, in different EPZs, who are processing that waste, who are basically working on it. We can take comments of them. Right. We can define a criteria and we can share with you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Yes, Dr. Uzma, I'm just getting back to you. Thank you for your comments. So to the colleagues who have joined us, my question from him was about how, if we have any mechanism that can help us in, for the first pillar that Jaya mentioned, in recognizing the items or any checks and balances, whatever we are purchasing from, importing from other countries. So he said that as of now, we do not have any mechanism or anything around it. But sir, the point is, and he is also right, we have KPZ representative, we have Dr. Uzma, we have different people here who are from different sectors that is connected with the second-hand textile market. But sir, the point is that the criteria, the pillar that Jaya just showed, and it's also in front of you. Umair, can you scroll down a bit? Scroll up. So, sir, a bit more, please. Sir, now this is basic grading system that we have in Pakistan. So, you think this is okay? There is grading A, B, C based on the kind of quality of the product we are getting, and then it gets sorted in Pakistan. We don't receive it pre-sorted.
My name is Salman Farooq. I'm a development practitioner with experience in textile. So I think the first point, do we really have any policy for the waste imported into Pakistan? No, sir. So that's the one of the key points before we go into the
sir, in current point in time, we don't have a particular legal document to import such kind of used textiles.
So I think you are missing the basic document on which you can sub, and then you go and define all these criteria.
Yeah, so that's why we are taking your suggestions now.
As I know, the second-hand clothing is, has been imported. People are importing second-hand clothing for last many years, and there are now specialized factories in EPZ, Karachi EPZ, and they are the president. But I think the main second-hand clothing is basically in EPZ Karachi. They have a specialized machinery in which they wash, decontaminate all those items. So I think is there anyone from that?
Yes, sir. We have hand raised. Also, we have representative from Karachi Export Processing Zone. Mustafa,
and do they have the criteria, Karachi Export Processing Zone?
Sorry, Dr. Uzma wants to comment. Sorry, online participants, just one comment from Dr. Uzma, please.
My comment was on this criteria. In fact, when this criteria is there, it means there is something. Who has done it? No.
propose कर रहे हैं, आपके inputs चाहिए.
Okay, तो जिस टाइम पे ये चीजें आती हैं तो वहां पे आपने इसमें बताया, you discussed in it in the presentation that they are graded like A, B, and C. Someone is doing it there.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
What-
Usman. So, Mustafa Saab, if I can take your comment, especially regarding the practices we have in KPZ, and if you are aligned with the pre-import and post-import sorting in Pakistan.
Yeah, so from our perspective, it's actually quite simple. If for example, I were to use a new supplier of my raw material, and I find when I open those goods that they are below par or there is garbage in that, then I will simply stop buying from that supplier and I will move to a supplier who sends me better quality goods. And so you filter out those suppliers who are simply not good or sending you subpar quality. So when it gets to a factory, for us, it's a very simplistic process where we identify A, B, C, and we have processes in place in how to do that. And after that, we also have a wiper area where we cut into wipers and re-export those as well, which is used for as cleaning equipment in the developed world in various industries, so auto industry, oil industry, so on and so forth. But in terms of what suppliers send you, I know who the quality suppliers are, and if I try new people and it just turns out okay, it's not good quality, I simply won't buy from them anymore. So the below par suppliers get filtered out of the process automatically.
Thank you. Before I request Hasnain for his comments, Umair, can you scroll up? Mustafa Saab, my point here is, okay, here, stop. So when sorting textiles for export, more desirable categories of clothing should be prioritized over less desirable based on country needs for re-export, reuse, and recycling. This is being proposed by us and by UNAP. But do you have comments? Because what we are proposing is it should be categorized based on sportswear, business wear, streetwear, formal wear, casual wear. Do you think this sort of sorting can work out in Pakistan?
We don't prioritize one over the other in the sense that for us, the first priority is quality, right? Quality 1, 2, 3. And we know we have a set, 300 plus items that we make. And that's based on historical understanding of what our clients require in different parts of the world. So if you were to limit it just by the type of clothing, I'm not sure that, because this doesn't then take into account quality as well.
All right. So ये जो criteria ये propose कर रहे हैं, the kind of criteria they're proposing, they're saying that it should be, we are basically SDPI UNAP, we have worked out on this criteria. So we are proposing that when secondhand clothing gets into Pakistan or maybe pre-export sorting, this is how clothing items should be sorted. Do you agree with this, sir?
Madam, I think this could serve the purpose a half bit. It can't actually serve the purpose in full capacity. You can sort out the products, your used clothing which you have imported, not on the basis of the products which you have imported, but on the basis of the raw materials which had been used in that products. Like on the basis of cotton products, if that is a t-shirt or denim, or that is a you can say that is a shirt. If that is based on cotton, that will be sorted in one category. If that is based on polyester, that will be sorted in another category. The products must be categorized on the basis of the raw material that had been used in those products. I think this type of sorting can serve the purpose, but not in absolute manner.
Okay, so we are aligned that the kind of sorting being proposed here, if it comes to Pakistan, I think it does not serve much of the purpose, right?
Basically, madam, the thing is the textile processing factories which basically use these used clothing, they import after importing, they use two types of processes. One is chemical processing, second is mechanical processing. And this is defined on the basis of the raw material which had been used in the product that is being imported. That's why my point is, I am not saying that my point is the final one, but my humble opinion is the sorting should be on the basis of the raw material that had been used in the imported used products.
So online participants, Hasnain, what is your comment on this?
Okay, I would like to add one point here. First of all, Mr. Salman Farooq has asked us like about, is there any regulations or data or like formal any document has been created for used clothing industry? But I think the first question is we need to ask how this business started in Pakistan. So we need to go to the roots first. So the roots was like connected when the Afghan refugees were here, and it was the clothes are coming in terms of charity. It was free as a donation. So and then it how it built the business, and then it grow gradually, and it becomes like a proper business structure. So now we have like a big industry, and then we have now circular economy. So now we are looking forward for more advanced systematic solution to handle the way like clothing waste and find out the way of using it. So we are in the transition phase at the moment. And I think the mention about the criteria you have showing, it is going to be very difficult for the importer in Pakistan and also the people in export from other countries. They cannot segregate by that composition in that way. And because when someone is donating or giving away the clothes, they cannot segregate the clothes by themselves like in this way. So this is my perspective on this part.
Thank you.
So by providing this list, sorry to cut you off. I'm just trying to understand why are we effectively saying that are we documenting this to try and understand how grading operations grade, or are we trying to dictate how they should grade?
So basically, we are proposing that, because we do understand the fact that a lot of items, they do not get sorted when they reach Pakistan. They're not sorted, and even in Pakistan, sorting is very basic level. So this is something that's being proposed at the moment, that this is how pre-export sorting can be done by other countries and even in Pakistan. So my question to you is, Umair, can you scroll down a bit, please? And also it could be based on branding and condition. We have based on condition, we have ABC grading. Umair, scroll up. That's it. ABC grading, but we don't have D and E grading. So A is best quality, B that requires little repair, C is mostly for recycling. But what about D and E? Noticeable wear such as prominent fading, visible stains could be repurposed for other uses if wear is too noticeable. E is poor, heavy wear and not suitable for resale in its current condition. So this is being proposed at the moment. What is your take on this criteria? Are you aligned with what is being proposed here, or do you suggest an alternative?
No, I think that grading facilities are independent businesses, and they should decide on their own what is A, B, C, and D, and who they can sell it to. Ultimately, they will sell, for a profit, the products that can be sold. So when I make A, B, C, and you refer to D, again, that's just someone's opinion. What's a D and what's an E, right? We also do, like I said, we do wiper cutting of product that we can't sell. So wiper cutting is also a product. And ultimately, if your quality is good, you'll end up selling it. But every grading house is a little bit different because the grading process is subjective. There is no book that can tell you what's what, right? So I'm not sure that we should be specifying that it must be A, B, C, D, and E. So I make A, B, C, and I make wipers, and that's kind of where we ended.
Right. Do we have a hand raised online? Yes, Jaya.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zainab, and the reaction so far. I would actually just would like to come in for a quick comment, which was the fact that whatever is on the document there is our observation so far on how and what factors influence the sorting processes that take place at different levels pre-export, once it's in the country, once it's being diverted to different avenues, including resale and re-exports and so on. For us, it would be very useful to understand which kind of, for example, there could be that consistently a certain quality grade is being sent to domestic market versus other quality grades that are consistently considered for re-exports. I think one of the observations that was shared during the SDPI study was the higher quality ABC is re-exported, and the slightly lower quality can still go into the domestic market. So we wanted to validate some of these findings and understand, is there certain categorization based on quality grades or based on types of clothing, based on material clothing, that is relevant to harmonize in terms of practices. I understand that each commercial operation will have very different ways of categorizing or classifying the things on a broad understanding of, that A will be a better quality than B. But yeah, so it's more about understanding which of these are priority for the country. Is it does it have anything to do with the differentiation on the type and the quality and the material and a mix of all of these? As you will see, there are all of these things mentioned in the document. Or whether we should focus on very different kinds of criteria altogether, the objective being facilitating value derivation. So do you think it's useful if all trading partners start using a certain kind of quality grading before it's even sent to Pakistan? These are some open-ended questions, and we want to just explore all angles while we work on what could look like a criteria, and then subsequently the guidelines that support this. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so I would say that, so especially in the export processing zone, I'm not sure about outside the zone, but I would say all the goods are ungraded, as they come as a big mix of items. What we sell into the local market from the export processing zone, we're limited to 20% of our product. So there is a limitation, because our purpose for investing in the export processing zone was to export. The products that we sell into the local market is usually lower quality goods, meaning cheaper goods, and I think that's also a byproduct of just economics, right? So my higher quality goods will go overseas because in certain markets I can fetch more money for them. For example, my highest quality goods, which we refer to as cream, end up in South and Central America, and that's purely because they can pay a higher price. And I simply wouldn't be able to get that price in Africa, and I wouldn't be able to get it in Pakistan for sure. So economics plays a big part in that. There are other factors as well. For example, if you look at certain items, like for example, down fur, right? So it comes in comforters and things like that. That is sold into Pakistan because then that is used for other things in the local industry. They open those up, they take out the down fur, and then they'll make pillows or other things from that. So there are certain items that because of the type of item it goes to Pakistan, but into the local market, but price has a lot to do with it as well.
Thank you. Omer, can you please scroll down a bit? That's it. Okay, sorry. Okay, so thank you, Mustafa Shah, for your comment. Do we have a hand raised online? Yes, please, Beatrice.
Thank you. And actually, Mustafa, you have already answered some of my initial questions, so thank you for that. I just wanted to follow up on the comment about the grading facilities actually doing this grading. So I just wanted to, I have a comment about that and also a question, mostly as we're saying, this is purely a structure that we wanted to propose as to facilitate discussions, but is by no means a final word. But the comment was about that. And the question is, what would be then useful for those facilities that are actually sorting the used textiles that arrive to help them create more value out of that. And when I say value, could be either they re-exported, or as some of the previous discussions were mentioning, they sell it to another stakeholder that then transforms that into another product. So in a way, there's this closed loop, and as far as I understand, the waste is quite minimal. So just wanted to also understand what would be useful, because part of this intention is to help a bit distinguish the used textiles and textiles waste. Not that it's not done and that it's not done correctly, but if there's a way that could be enhanced and could help create more economic value, what type of parameters would be useful for those stakeholders that are taking care of this? I noted some of those points, for example, on price and economics. As you were saying, some of these products go to certain parts of the world because that's basically where you can sell it for a higher price. So what type of parameters would you see that would be useful to enhance that economic value, but also paired with these environmental and social elements during this sorting of used textiles? Thank you.
So I would say that the system that's in place right now with these grading facilities has been around for decades now. And over time, I think grading facilities have become very, very efficient. They've figured out who the good suppliers are. They know where to send the goods, when they know where to get the highest value, and so on and so forth. And like I said, when I get a mix of clothing, 99% of it is either reused or recycled. I don't think there's any technology in the world that can compete with those kind of numbers right now. There will be, and as technology advances, the recycling side will get better and better and cheaper, and I think that's good for everybody ultimately. So what I think should be done actually and not just in Pakistan, but Pakistan being one of the hubs, is to encourage more of this. So more facilities, larger facilities, expansions, and we have to incentivize in some way, and I'm not sure which is the best way to incentivize this industry, but it's certainly not happening right now, and I think we need to have a good look at that. One way, as I mentioned earlier, is you can look at this area as complementary to new textiles. And so since Pakistan is, a country which produces a lot of new textiles, you can incentivize the country by saying, okay, if this country does X, Y, and Z amount of recycling or reuse, then their quota for new textiles should go up. And that, in a way, would be incentivizing. I'll just give you an example of certain things that have happened. So just a few years ago, our denim jeans that did not fall in any of our 1, 2, and 3 categories would sell for very, very cheap prices. And as you know, Pakistan is very, very big in denim. That product right now goes to the denim mills in Karachi. And the reason is because an H&M or a Zara or a Levi's have required them to use X percentage of recycled denim. And so those denim producers have to prove where this product has come from, that it is in fact used clothing. And as a result of that, we get a higher price. So everybody wins. And I think over time, as these things keep changing, the technology keeps coming, and the various industries keep requiring these things of their suppliers, we will evolve. But I think when we talk about expanding our industry, because we think we're pretty good at this, and beneficial to not just Pakistan, but to the world, where we are currently right now is the fact, and it's hard to ignore this, we simply cannot expand. We're not allowed to expand. Taxation on us has gone up dramatically. So I think these are the kinds of things that we have to encourage and reassess if we are to grow and move forward, and that'll allow us to process more goods.
Thank you, Mustafa Saab, and I think that's where we get the clarity regarding how we can go about this criteria. So, if there's any other hand raised, okay, Hasnan, yes, please go ahead.
I would like to add on with Mr. Mustafa that we were being like asked to sign a contract with RenewCell for 12,000 tons a year supply chain. But on that time, the denim no one was buying on that time. But I was coming from a denim background, so we told them that it is impossible. Right now, there is no demand. So maybe you can find the waste of the clothing, but once there will be a demand created, because on that time the brands were looking also for more supply chain system which is more circular and which has a traceability, because now the traceability is one of the key factor of the circular economy and recycling, and so this is one of the challenges as well, because we are the one of the GRS certified company in Karachi, so which has a compliance structure and everything working more into that solution, and we are providing the traceability and exporting to the Japan and the Europe market. So we have an industrial collaboration around the world. So this is one of the key elements. I think we are in a very early stage in Pakistan. We need to transform and build the mechanism and the regulatory solutions and support the industry, which can give because in Europe, they have created around several, I think 7 or 8 rehubs centers for the textiles collection of the waste. So I think Pakistan could be one of that hub as well and join in that system, and it can support in that way, so which can bring a highlight to the European countries that Pakistan could be one of the major player for that solution.
Thank you for that, Hasnan. So if we don't have any other hand raised, maybe we can proceed with the next point. Ji, please scroll down कीजिएगा उमेर. Okay, just here. So this, I think we have talked about, Umar Saab mentioned that we need to sort it based on the raw material fiber. This comment is coming from representative of Ministry of Commerce. So I think here there's an alignment with Ministry of Commerce that, this should be sorted based on the raw material. And I think we also agree that at least there has to be a basic understanding around the raw materials. And if it gets pre-sorted, before it's being exported to Pakistan, I think that would be great. Construction of material, woven fabrics, knit fabrics, hand woven. I think this sort of grading, Mustafa Saab has already commented on that. Next comes contamination and hygiene. So this is a point that one of the online participants was also mentioning. And I think this is a key area where we need to work out. Although we have a policy, National Hazardous Waste Management Policy, that was developed back in 2022. But the point is we don't have an implementation plan in context of second-hand clothing as yet. So Ministry of Commerce, maybe if Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Climate Change gets aligned on this thing, how second-hand clothing, this aspect of contamination and hygiene gets addressed, I think that would be a value addition to this entire sector. But this is a suggestion that comes from my end. I would really request the participants to share their comments on this as well. If there's any comment from the in-person participants on this point, contamination and hygiene, के इस पे होना चाहिए या नहीं, please.
Definitely, madam, this is a very, very sensitive point, and definitely I have noted this point. I'll discuss with my senior management as well as with Ministry of Climate Change, and we should definitely submit our feedback on it.
Yes, please, Dr. Isma.
I think the whole ecosystem should be developed, in which we need to see that there should be a hygiene check, there should be a quality check, there should be climate element should be also be there, and we also you must be looking at that thing, that what is the current practice going on. That is very important, because we have to expand that, and we have to we can maybe some department can be established over there where all the representatives of these can sit for example, quality control, hygiene control, environmental check, and customs, and everyone. So this is recommended.
Thank you. So Hasnan, before I take you, I can see your hand raised. There's another hand raised of Dr. Basharat Hassan Bashir. I think he is also connected with clients who operates textile recycling facility, converting textile waste into cotton. So Hasnan, your comment, and then maybe I can request the IT team to elevate Dr. Basharat as a speaker. Over to you, Hasnan, please.
Okay, I think this point is very important for the hygiene, and I agree with Mukit as well that we need to focus on that part. But the problem is that we never consider water as a value in the supply chain system of the new textile or the old textile, because we know that how much water it required to grow 1 kilograms of cotton. It's not my research, it's coming a professor from Harvard University, MIT. And as per him, it's like approx 18,000 liter has been consumed to grow 1 kilogram of cotton, which also required 6 months. So we need to calculate that data as well. If we are talking about data and mechanism and the facts, then we have to go deep down about every material and their its own challenges and its own facts and figures and numbers. So on another part of the used clothing industry about this part, so I think it is going to be impossible for anyone who's going to export, because and what are the key measures practice or like the parameters you will be decide, as like, because the waste is coming in a big bales. So how are you going to check like every bale, like you open it, and what will be the mechanism for that solution actually?
Thank you, Hasnan. Yes, Dr. Basharat, you may please comment.
Yes, my concern was regarding the treatment of this waste with bleach and different types of acids. And they dispose of the effluent directly into the adjoining water bodies. So we would like to know, from the experts of UNEP and the EU, that what type of treatment should be given. Are there any modular effluent treatment plants that can be bought from abroad and then can be, later through reverse engineering be manufactured in Pakistan? Because this is a huge problem, and there are hundreds of such units which are recycling the cotton waste and treating it with bleach and acids. So that was my question.
Thank you. जी सर मुस्तफा साहब and फिर मैं आपसे comment लेती हूँ. Yes, please, Mustafa साहब, your comment.
Yeah, I think some of these things relate to recycling as opposed to reuse. But I just wanted to interject that in the reuse side, there is no washing involved, and there is no dyeing involved on the rework side. The other side is when we talk about hygiene, there is another angle. When we purchase these goods, the mixed rags, they're on, and this relates more to, viruses and things like that. There isn't much of an issue in that because these goods actually travel for 2 months on the ocean. So I think the chances of virus things surviving for that long are almost nil.
So thank you. In the interest of time, I'll directly move towards other question and answer. Then I'll first comment will be yours. So basically, okay, I understand your point, Mustafa Saab, and we do realize the fact that we don't get pre-washed clothing. It's mostly the used textile and textile waste. That's fine. So my next question is, okay, so we are aligned. Umair, can you please scroll down? So we are aligned on the fact that certain criteria can be that's it Umair, thank you. Certain criteria can be put into place, but certain criteria is something that is not very beneficial, and that is because that is not in demand, and there are certain practices that are in place, but there's certain gap also, as Umar Farooq Saab mentioned, that MOC and Ministry of Climate Change needs to sit down and work jointly on this criteria, and he will be taking this thing forward. So I think we can then work out on it collectively. What type of value addition? Okay, so just one comment from Mustafa Saab. I think you have already mentioned about your company as well, so I don't think we need to elaborate more on this question. What type of value addition processes are most commonly undertaken that bring economic value? You mentioned about re-exports, you mentioned about your company's work, so I think that's fine. Omer, can you scroll down, please? Next is country readiness. Okay, that's scrolled up a bit. ऊपर करें, ऊपर, yeah, please. Okay. The country has a clear understanding of the potential risk posed by used textile waste. Yes, we have heard our online participants as well. Used textile waste has been taken into consideration in government strategies on pollution assessment and management. No, but MOC representative says that they are going to be working on this collectively with Ministry of Climate Change, because there are certain policies that they have to work on, by aligning their priorities. If there's potential for waste, there's existence of data and transparency on how much waste is generated. Okay, Ji sir, I would like to take your comment, but also your comment on, do you agree with the fact that we have data on how much waste is being generated within this sector? Over to you, please.
Right. I think the first point I would like to make, as Mr. Umar mentioned, we also need to keep in mind that the climate-related policy is now a provincial subject. I think import is a federal subject, but when you talk about domestic commerce, you need to keep in the provincial bodies intact. I mean, Ministry of their Industries Department, their environmental protection agencies. Secondly, you said about the data. I don't think so. We have a data available right now. I'm not sure whether the Ministry of Climate is working or not, but as far as my understanding is concerned, none of the provincial or the federal agencies have that specific data.
Thank you. Mustafa Saab, do you think in the Karachi export processing zone, based on the current recycling infrastructure, we have the optimum capacities and we have the data on around volumes? Yes, we did mention certain volume of imported textiles in our reports as well. But what about the gaps and bottlenecks? Over to you, please. Is it being reported and documented?
In terms of, if you have, we process, I believe, about 4 million pounds a day in the zone. There are about 80 factories doing this. But if you're good at at what you do, then you will move a higher percentage of your goods. I think it's really that simple. But like I said, it's like I said, 99%. So that's a very, very high number. We can move almost everything. In fact, we even go to the extent of even the packaging in which we get our raw material is resold and reused.
Okay, that's very interesting. So that is a practice within KPZ. But the practice we observed by retailers in the flea markets, there are retailers who do not use plastics, especially in Peshawar side. They are encouraging, tote bags, etc. But in Islamabad side, flea markets, although we have strict regulations in Islamabad, but interestingly, flea markets are using plastic bags openly. That's a practice we observed ourselves. But I think these kind of regulations will certainly help if government and ministries also come up with eco-friendly alternatives. And Hasnan is there. We have startups who are providing eco-friendly alternatives using recycled material. So I think there's that gap between startups and government that needs to be bridged also to make it more available for the consumers. Okay, so next, please, can you scroll down? Okay, just slowly. ऊपर करें इसको थोड़ा सा बस. So regulatory and policy landscape. Umar Farooq Saab mentioned that they are working on a draft around second-hand textile clothing that will directly address this sector. As of now, we have indirect policies and certain, practices being mentioned in different documents by FBR, customs, that are linked with trade side. But national and local measures, we don't have it yet. Am I right, sir? Okay. So he agrees we don't have it. Employment and labor standards in second-hand clothing market. Mustafa Saab, your company must be employing certain standards. If you can mention those standards.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually in a federal zone in the export processing zone. So there are certain requirements which we follow. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Supply chain monitoring.
So
Yes,
just as an example, we don't keep people below a certain age. We want to employ a high percentage of women. NIC cards are requirements. All sorts of things.
thank you for mentioning that. And also just one comment, because these are mostly related to you. That's why I keep on addressing, because we also require validation. So mandate track and trace systems. Do we have any tracing system, value chain track and trace system, anything like that? How we can, address this entire value chain, the life cycle assessment of the products, anything like that?
No, so I think this is actually a global issue as well, right? So everybody's trying to now figure out how do we trace, where a piece of clothing originated and where does it end up. So the moment there isn't a way to track that piece of clothing, aside from the obvious, which is where we send our products in general.
Right. That's interesting, and that's a gap, but that is where lies an opportunity as well. If we can work it out together. There's another hand raised, please. Yes, Hasnan.
I would like to add here as well that there is a new solution which are coming on in the market, in the industry. It's about the fiber, like a traceability, and that traceability solution is embedded in the fiber stage before spinning the yarn and goes back to the fabric or the garment. So there are new technologies, and we are one of the partner with the German technology firm here in Pakistan. So what we are doing, we are embedding the traceable solutions in recycled fiber, and it creating a first loop. So afterwards, when it goes back to the land, like at the end of the life, so the digital solution still exists on that stage. So when it will support the new AI technologies, so when it's coming back in the recycle streamline, so they can track it back from where it's coming from and from where it's originate. This
That's an interesting.
the garment
Yes.
has been started. So there is a.
Yes, that's an interesting solution. Thank you for sharing that. So based on,
can I please make a comment here around this value chain thing before you move forward?
Yes, and your feedback also, please, on this entire criteria we are proposing. Sure, please.
Okay, yeah. So I think you rightly mentioned that this value chain is very complex. So the first thing I would say is that all this criteria development cannot be done in isolation. So just imagine that you develop a criteria, and the exporting countries where you are getting all these textile, used textile and waste textile, they are not accepting that criteria, or they don't have the right technology, they don't have the right instruments, they don't have the right systems in place that can provide you according to that criteria. So all your effort around this criteria, that will be useless, right? So the first thing I think UNEP is the right platform, and they can connect all the stakeholders. This is my comment from the value chain perspective. It's very complex, and it couldn't be done in isolation. And a lot of stakeholders need to be on board to understand. And from so you said feedback from the perspective of classifying. So what I can see is that there are two main uses of textiles when they come to, for example, to Pakistan. So one of them is reuse, and the second one is recycling. So if there's a way that we can classify or sort these textiles at the country of origin, that what is something that's going to mechanical recycling, and what are the textiles that are going to be used for reuse, I think that can really help, right? Because if I talk about a little bit about numbers from Australia, so almost 400,000 garments are being imported in Australia every year, because Australia is not in like textile manufacturing. Out of that, 51,000 garments per annum, they are being, reused here through op shops and through charity, these thrift stores and all that. 51,000 tons. That is actually being resold here. And then there's a huge amount that is around something 200,000 tons that is going to landfill, and the rest of it is like being exported, right? So I think if it is coming in a way like we know what is coming for the mechanical recycling and what is coming for the reuse, that could really help, right? And just another thing, before that, the starting point, I believe, sorry, it's getting a bit longer. So the starting point, I believe, could be that the first debate should be how important it is to get all this used and waste textile to Pakistan. Yeah, I understand it's very important for the people who are at the lower end of the this economic divide, I would say. It's very important for them. But if it is a kind of business that government is going to be supporting, that all the waste textile, I'm saying waste from the exporters' perspective, all the waste textile is coming to Pakistan, I won't support that. This is my personal opinion. I won't support that. So as long as it is something that is useful for the people from the marginal classes, it's good. But now we need to define how to segregate this good from the bad that is coming with that good. And the bad thing, which I spoke about, and also a lot of other speakers mentioned, are the environmental impacts, are the chemical, contamination thing, and also we all know dengue virus that came through waste to Pakistan. Yeah. So this is my input and feedback.
Thank you for sharing your very valuable feedback indeed. And of course, these kind of feedbacks will help us in understanding it in a much better way and at greater depths. And of course, we also need to work around how allergens and these contaminants are reaching Pakistan through what waste streams. I believe it's not just the SHC we are importing. There are so many other things that is also being imported in Pakistan. But because SHC is a huge market in Pakistan. So, and based on the inflation, I can tell you the kind of inclination now we are having in Pakistan is a lot. It's more compared to other, compared to the past. It's more. So, but thank you for your comments, and it's well noted and taken. Can you please scroll down? Just last few comments from here. Community and social benefits. So benefit from value chain processes are maximized and distributed equitably, fairly. Is it the case? Level of organization, unionization. We did have a chance to interact with Peshawar. In Peshawar, there's a second-hand clothing textiles manufacturers association. So there's an association that we found in Peshawar, but I'm not sure if there's this kind of association in any other part of the country. If anybody can elaborate on that. Ji, Mustafa Sahab, your hand is raised. Is it raised now? Yes, please.
Apologies that I forgot to lower it earlier.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any other association as such.
Yes, so that is the case. We don't know any other such association. Even the retail market association, we were not able to get anything on that. We haven't heard it. Nobody is aware of any association yet in this sector, which is interesting because we have so many associations otherwise in the country in almost every sector. Yeah. So access to formal and affordable finance at different stages in the domestic use textiles value chain. Are there any microloans or anything like that being provided to this sector? If anybody can emphasize or comment, microloans, microfinance, anything that supports this sector? So I think there's one practice that we found through our survey, if anybody can validate that, in Karachi, there's this organization, I can share the name later, that supports women in upskilling them so they get their skill, they get skilled in stitching and recreating designs in clothing. And those women are being hired by within Karachi Export Processing Zone, within those companies. So I think this is one practice that we found. We do understand that there are many women in Karachi Export Processing Zone that are involved in manual recycling and collection, right? जी, any comment? Mustafa साहब आपने unmute किया.
Just saying earlier, we had talked about hygiene and things like that. So just one point I wanted to interject was that our raw material is fumigated before it comes here.
Yeah, thank you. So sorting and quality assurance. Ji, Umar Saab, this is from you. So there is adequate capacity of custom officer to undertake random checks. Custom officers, they take random checks when we are getting containers. Mariam, if you can please give seat to Dr. Abid here. Please. Thank you. So there are containers when they reach Karachi port. So how do custom officials ensure quality assurance?
I think there must be a custom relevant person who could elaborate this point. I am not in a position to elaborate their way of working.
Sure. So
I don't know. I don't know that they do quality checks because there's no way for them to do a quality check, right? So they just need to ensure when it comes to the export processing zone, they need to ensure that what's inside the container, and is it really, for example, what we say it is. Example is, if I say I'm getting a container of used clothing and they open up the container and it turns out to be a container of shoes or something else, then that would be a problem. And that's what they're really looking for.
Thank you. Gigi, please.
I think that the duty of the custom officer is not to check the quality, but whatever the document the importer has submitted, they just need to verify, and based on the risk assessment system, which is now in place based on the Pakistan single window. So I think there are very minimum chances that the containers are being checked for any purpose. It also depends who the importer is. If the importer is not a red flagged company, so they won't check their containers. Just a question from Mustafa Saab. When you re-export to South America and the North America, what category of HS code you put in your Pakistan single window, or I'm forgetting the name in the form when you re-export to other countries? Is it a used clothing or it's a new clothing which you put in the document for re-export?
Used clothing, but I'll just get you the exact HS code. Give me a second.
Thank you for that. Can you please scroll down to the last criteria? Just last. Okay, just here. So is there any complaint and feedback management system and supply relations? Umar Saab, do we have a feedback mechanism with second-hand importers and exporters?
No, madam, there is no such system in place at Ministry of Commerce or at any other government level institution.
So this is a response from Ministry of Commerce representative. We don't have any feedback management system in place, but if this is being proposed by UNEP, EU and SDPI, so I hope Ministry will be open to cater it. And also you're preparing a draft, right?
Definitely, madam. We shall definitely consider your proposal after getting comments from major textile and apparel associations and the different major players like KPZ and other players who are involved in this whole process. We shall definitely work on it, and we shall take up the matter.
Thank you very much. Ji, sir.
I think Ministry of Commerce has a sub-department. It's called TDRO.
TDRO.
So, yeah, Trade Dispute Resolution Organization. So their job is to resolve dispute, but I hardly heard any dispute being resolved by TDRO so far, because there's a cost involved, and the jurisdiction of TDR is also very important. It's altogether a different topic.
TDRO is a very, very new institution. That is basically its inception. It is basically resolving some disputes, but its efficiency will be seen in a few years. I think
it's already in existence for last 10 years. It's not that new anymore.
Yes, but thank you so much for the very valuable comments. We have been joined by Dr. Abid Suleri. He's the Executive Director, SDPI, member of International Advisory Committee of COP29, and also a member of Asian Institute. Sorry, what's that? Just let me get it corrected. But Beatrice and Jaya, in the meantime, we have Dr. Suleri here, and we are done with the criteria discussion. So Dr. Abid Suleri is also a member advisory council of Asian Development Bank Institute. So he wears a lot of caps, and he has a broad portfolio now. So not just as executive director of SDPI, he's been looking after the work we are doing here as part of this project. So Beatrice and Jaya, I hope we have been joined by Asad Naqvi Sahab as well from UNEP. Just let me know if there's any comment of reflection from your end, and then we can move with the comments from Dr. Abid and Asad. Yes, Beatrice?
Yes, I think Asad is online. He's joining us now.
Right. So,
Yes, I'm
Mr.
here.
Asad Naqvi, yes, please. We can hear you.
Oh, would you like me to go first? Thank you. So thank you so much for the opportunity to join this discussion. It's been an honor. It's been a learning experience. And second time coming back to SDPI, that's where I started my career from a long time ago. So it's a double privilege in that sense. Very informative discussion. I really learned a lot. And thank you so much, Zainab, for bringing all the right people together in this discussion. I think we heard a lot about the reality of the secondhand textile thing in Pakistan. I must say that, you have helped to demystify an issue which has a very negative connotation in the world where we live, like I live here in the West. And it seems that, the used textile is creating a lot of waste, a lot of environmental problem, a lot of social issues. Today's discussion basically demystified that perception. It's all going wrong. No, it's not going wrong. It is creating opportunities. We, especially having the private sector representative, and Sattar Saab, thank you so much for sharing your insights, which basically helps Pakistan to lift its position in the global circular economy movement. And I wanted to say that we should do more of that, probably. It was great to have our colleagues from the European Union, and thank you, European Union, for supporting us in this project. But I would say that we should have these type of dialogues with other countries who are looking for opportunities, so that whatever they are unable to handle at ground, in their home ground, in their own countries, there are opportunities for the rest of the world. As they say, someone's waste is other person's resource. And that is what I think we were listening today, that how it creates opportunities. A couple of points which can probably make the future discussions on this more valuable and more probably ground reality based. Ek to, if I can speak in Urdu, I assume everybody understands Urdu. एक तो ये कि multilinguality जो है कि अगर हम इसको मुख्तलिफ ज़बानों में कर सकें तो उससे शायद वो आवाज़ें सामने आएंगी जो आज नहीं आ सकी. मतलब मेरा ताल्लुक एक फार्मिंग फैमिली से है. I come from a small village in Punjab. और इसका farmers पे क्या impact होगा? Because we are looking at it in this discussion in the context of Pakistan. लेकिन ये एक global discussion है. कि जी अगर रिसाइकलिंग बढ़ती है टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर में और रीयूज बढ़ता है तो क्या फार्मर्स पे या कॉटन प्रोड्यूसर्स पे उसका कोई इम्पैक्ट होगा या नहीं होगा. उसके ऊपर कम बात हुई. उसकी एक वजह जुबान भी हो सकती है. दूसरा, वो लोग शायद नहीं आ सके हैं जो इस डिस्कशन में एक अहम हिस्सा है कि जी जो सप्लाई चेन्स बिल्कुल शुरू में आती हैं, फार्मर से लेके और टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री तक, उनके ऊपर कुछ शायद ज्यादा बात हो सके और उसमें हम कुछ समझ सकें कि उनके क्या मसाइल हैं. इन्वायरमेंट के ऊपर बात हुई कि जी कुछ इश्यूज हैं इन्वायरमेंट के ऊपर, लेकिन बहुत कम इश्यूज हैं और उनको हैंडल किया जा सकता है. तो जो पॉजिटिव कंस्ट्रक्शन हो सकती है इस डायलॉग की कि जी अगर कोई इन्वायरमेंटली हार्मफुल इश्यूज आ भी रहे हैं तो उनको हैंडल कैसे किया जा सकता है, और उनमें वो मुल्क जो इस प्रॉब्लम का, लेट्स से वेस्ट जिनका हम मैनेज कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, वो क्या किरदार अदा कर सकते हैं. और उसमें यूरोपियन यूनियन का किरदार बहुत अहम है कि जी अगर वहां से आ रहा है, अमेरिका से आ रहा है, कनाडा से आ रहा है, तो वो क्या मुस्तफा साहब की एक डिस्कशन, एक पॉइंट उनका मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा कि जी आप उसको किसी इंसेंटिव के साथ कनेक्ट कर दें, बजाय इसके कि सारा रेगुलेटरी मैकेनिज्म हो, कि जी आप उसको कोटा ज्यादा कर दें उन कंट्रीज का जो इसको बेहतर हैंडल कर सकते हैं विदाउट एनी नेगेटिव एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट, और उसमें जो एक्सपोर्टिंग कंट्रीज हैं वो एक अहम किरदार अदा कर सकते हैं मेरा ख्याल है। सॉर्टिंग के ऊपर बात हुई, ABC कैटेगराइजेशन क्वालिटी के ऊपर है, बिल्कुल ठीक है, लेकिन अगर आप उसको एनवायरनमेंट से लिंक करें तो जो कॉटन बेस्ड, उनका एक आइडिया था कि जी कॉटन बेस्ड सॉर्टिंग वर्सेस पॉलिएस्टर बेस्ड सॉर्टिंग, क्योंकि कॉटन का एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट और है, नई प्रोडक्शन का भी एज वेल एज पॉलिएस्टर का मुख्तलिफ है, और उसको रीयूज करने का और रिसाइकिल करने का भी, तो शायद उससे अच्छा है। यहाँ पे ये करना बहुत आसान है, जो आपका भेजने वाला है वो हम लोग अपने घरों में 3-4 आपके बिन्स होती हैं कि जी इसमें रिसाइकल्ड है, इसमें ऑर्गेनिक है, इसमें पेपर है, इसमें ये है वो। तो जो लोग कपड़ा देना चाह रहे हैं और खासतौर पे चैरिटीज को देना चाह रहे हैं, अगर यहाँ पे उनको ये कहा जाए कि आप ये कर लें तो बहुत आसानी से कर सकते हैं कि जी आप उनको यहीं से सॉर्टिंग करके भेज दें। और फिर जो क्वालिटी सॉर्टिंग है वो मुस्तफा साहब ने जैसे बताया कि जी ABCD कैटेगरीज में आसानी से हो सकती है। जो एक और बात मुझे अच्छी लगी आज की डिस्कशन में वो ये था कि ग्लोबली अपॉर्चुनिटीज आर इंक्रीजिंग फॉर दिस टाइप ऑफ वर्क। जैसे सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी के ऊपर बहुत फोकस है, जिसकी वजह से ये प्रोजेक्ट हो रहा है कि जी द वर्ल्ड इज गोइंग सर्कुलर, क्योंकि उसका जो क्लाइमेट के ऊपर इम्पैक्ट है, जो लीनियर इकोनॉमी है उसका, और जो उसका नेचर के ऊपर इम्पैक्ट है, जैसे कॉटन में जितने भी केमिकल्स और ये सारी चीजें यूज हो रही हैं उसको कम किया जा सकता है। तो एक तो वो है। दूसरा ये कि जी मेरा ख्याल है हसनैन ने शायद ये बात की कि जी अब जो नई डेनिम बन रही है या और चीजें बन रही हैं उसमें एक रिक्वायरमेंट है प्रोड्यूसर्स की, जो कि जी उसमें रिसाइकल्ड मटेरियल कंटेंट आप कितना डाल रहे हैं। यहाँ पे आप देखिए, और शायद बाकी मुल्कों में भी, कि जो कंज्यूमर है वो ये चाहता है कि जितना ज्यादा रिसाइकल्ड मटेरियल है, ही इज विलिंग टू पे अ प्रीमियम प्राइस फॉर दैट। एंड आई थिंक पाकिस्तान टाइप कंट्रीज कैन benefit and build on that कि जी प्रीमियम प्राइसेस मिलने चाहिए आपको, बिकॉज यू आर सर्विंग द एनवायरनमेंट, जैसे बाकी फील्ड्स में होता है। और सुलैरी साहब को पता होगा कि जी जो लोग इकोसिस्टम सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं उनको यहाँ की गवर्नमेंट्स एडिशनल प्रीमियम, एडिशनल सब्सिडीज मिलती हैं, तो उससे भी कनेक्ट किया जा सकता है इस बात को। हेल्थ हैजर्ड के इश्यूज पे बात हुई है, विच वाज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। बहुत खुल के सामने नहीं आया कि जी सेकेंड हैंड टेक्सटाइल के साथ किस किस्म के हैजर्डस हेल्थ और केमिकल्स का यूज और एटसेट्रा, मतलब मुस्तफा साहब ने कहा कि बहुत ज्यादा नहीं होता, उसको थोड़ा सा अगर थोड़ा सा डीपर डिग करें तो शायद कुछ निकल आए और फिर उनके कुछ सोल्यूशंस भी निकाले जा सकते हैं। तो ये सारी चीजें बहुत अहम है। इसके साथ अब ये है कि करना क्या है। अब दो चीजें हो सकती हैं एक पॉलिसी इन्वायरमेंट है जिसके ऊपर कुछ ना कुछ हो रहा है, आई होप दैट विल हैपन एंड दैट विल हेल्प, लेकिन उसमें जो अहम बात होती है यूजुअली कि जो इस तरह के छोटे सेक्टर्स होते हैं उस पर अगर ओवर रेगुलेशन हो जाए तो शायद उनकी ग्रोथ मुश्किल हो जाती है। एंड स्पेशली हमारे जैसे मुल्कों में जहाँ पे क्या कह सकते हैं उसको, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के चैलेंजेस होते हैं, लीकेजेस होती हैं, वो बाकी सारी चीजें, तो उसको बैलेंस करना चाहिए जो मार्केट सोल्यूशंस हैं। मुस्तफा साहब का सोल्यूशन बड़ा पसंद आया मुझे। उन्होंने कहा कि जी हम एक बंदे से लेते हैं, माल अच्छा नहीं होता, हम अगली दफा नहीं लेते। वेरी सिंपल सोल्यूशन, इंश्योर्स क्वालिटी, नो नीड फॉर रेगुलेशन ऑफ दैट। फाइनेंसिंग पे बात हुई, लेकिन उस पर मेरा ख्याल है जरूरत होगी। एक तो जो मुस्तफा साहब कह रहे थे कि जी हमारे चैलेंजेस ये हैं कि अगर हम इसको एक्सपेंड करना चाहते हैं तो उस पर रेगुलेटरी मैकेनिज्म्स हैं कि हम नहीं कर पाते हैं। इफ द कंट्री थिंक्स दैट इट्स अ गुड थिंग फॉर the environment, for the economy, for the employment, for the re-export, foreign exchange reserves, etc., that should be encouraged. And that will require financing and upskilling. These are the two major things. How we can get to the next level of value addition in those type of things. The last point I want to make is about the leakages. I heard that there is a 20% restriction that anything that comes into country as a second-hand textile, only 20% of that can go into the local market. My feeling is that there are leakages in that system and probably a higher percentage is going into the local market. और उसकी वजह से फिर local industry के ऊपर एक impact आ सकता है, जो कि we are seeing in Africa as well, that it is happening, that the local industry is negatively getting impacted because of that. And as we are talking globally, we need to look for global solutions on that part. In India, there is a 0% policy, that everything that comes as a second-hand textile, that all needs to be re-exported with value addition and everything. So there are models that can be looked at, and there can be solutions which help them to come together. I had prepared a few other things which were more for the opening remarks, but what we are seeing, what is the purpose of having this criteria basically? So number one, that globally there is a negative image about this. So these type of dialogues will help demystify the reality on the second-hand textiles. Number two, Pakistan can be a beneficiary if a criteria becomes a reality, because the combination of number one, being able to process and reprocess and re-export second-hand textile in a country where there is already a textile market, that creates a good combination, that you can use whatever we call, let's say, the waste out of it, that can go into still the production of new products in the same country. So your environmental footprint is quite small in that sense, but you are creating value addition for the re-exports and serving an international market. So thank you so much. I'm really grateful, Zainab, to you and your team, and Abid, you and your team for making this happen and making it a very realistic dialogue. And this whole project is adding a lot of value. The discussions and the feedback that we are getting from Pakistan is actually informing a global debate. So please take this work forward. I think there are huge opportunities to connect this work with the national level work that is going into the greening of the industry. So you must be part of that one. Making the national industry more competitive basically comes from two sources. One is the per unit input of energy into the production of final products, or let's say GDP, and per unit input of resources or material and virgin resources in per unit of GDP. And that's how the world is looking at the economic competitiveness now. And these type of things, these type of initiatives can help us make Pakistani economy far more competitive going forward. So thank you so much. But basically, huge thanks to you and the European Union, and really a learning opportunity. And I look forward to seeing many of you next week when I come for the SDC, inshallah. So thanks a lot, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Asad Naqvi, for very kind remarks and very valuable inputs. Basically, you have summarized the entire debate. So thank you for that. And may I now please request Dr. Abid Suleri for his comments. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, Asad. Good to see you virtually, and I look forward to welcome you next week when we'll be holding the National Policy Dialogue on it as part of our Sustainable Development Conference on 6th of November. To me, the major contribution of our partnership, STPI, EU, and UNEP is that we are able to challenge this myth and make a distinction between textile waste and recycled clothing which is being used in Pakistan. और ये तफरीक जो है ये बहुत अहम है, ना सिर्फ सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से, बल्कि इसकी जो इकोनॉमिक और इन्वायरमेंटल जो इम्प्लिकेशंस हैं उनको दुरुस्त करने के लिए. और अवर स्टडीज इट टेल्स अस कि हमारे पास जो इस वक्त रिसाइकल्ड क्लोथिंग सेकंड हैंड क्लोथिंग जो पाकिस्तान में आ रहे हैं, इवन उनका जो लास्ट शेड है वो भी फर्नीचर फिलिंग की तरफ जा रहा होता है, या वो उसको फाइबर में कन्वर्ट किया जा रहा होता है. इवन वी हैव कलेक्टेड डाटा कि किस तरीके से जो नए कपड़े बन रहे हैं वो कैसे इस इम्पोर्टेंट सेकंड हैंड क्लोथिंग की एक्सेसरीज, बटन्स और जिप्स और फ्लाइज और बाकी चीज़ें वो इस्तेमाल कर रहे होते हैं. सो ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स दे एक्चुअली आर क्वाइट encouraging, and I must say that this is the first of its kind research, and thanks both to UNEP and to EU for giving this idea कि इस रिसर्च को पाकिस्तान में किया जाए. I'm sure कि पाकिस्तान और जो other countries, the peer economies where this project is being done, वहाँ से बड़ी यूजफुल इंसाइट जो है वो सामने आ रही होगी टू मेक अ स्ट्रॉन्ग केस फॉर सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी। यहाँ पे ऑलरेडी शायद डिस्कस हो चुका हो, बट FBR ने जो 10% रेगुलेटरी ड्यूटी सेकेंड हैंड क्लोथिंग से खत्म की है, आई थिंक दैट इज आल्सो एन एनकरेजिंग स्टेप के उसकी वजह से भी तो थोड़ा इनकरेज होगा यहाँ पे इस इम्पोर्ट मार्केट को मजीद बेहतर बनाना। योर आइडिया ऑफ स्टडिंग इट्स इम्पैक्ट्स ऑन फार्मर्स, स्पेशली कॉटन फार्मर्स, दिस इज वंडरफुल सजेशन, और हमारी कोशिश होगी कि हम अगले फेज में या एक किसी नई स्टडी में इस पे थोड़ा सा इन डेप्थ हम काम कर सकें। Is there any awareness? Do the people they feel किसका मैग्नीट्यूड, इसका वॉल्यूम क्या है, क्या जो हमारा कॉटन ग्रोअर है उसकी सारी कॉटन अगर तो वो वाकईतन पाकिस्तान की टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री में यूज़ हो रही है तो शायद वो थ्रेटन फील कर रहा हो, लेकिन अगर टेक्सटाइल इंपोर्ट कॉटन इंपोर्ट हो रही है या सिंथेटिक यार्न इंपोर्ट हो रहा है नई मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के लिए, तो उस सिनेरियो में किस तरह का इस पे इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा। और अगर इस चीज़ को हम इस इक्वेशन से निकाल देते हैं कि देर इज एब्सोल्युटली नो सेकेंड हैंड क्लोथिंग अवेलेबल, तो जो हमारे लोअर और लोअर मिडिल इनकम अर्नर सेगमेंट्स हैं रूरल एरियाज में, उनके लिए स्पेशली विंटर्स में किस तरीके से जो क्लोथिंग की रिक्वायरमेंट पूरी हो रही होंगी, इसको एक कॉस्ट एंड बेनिफिट एनालिसिस देखना होगा। एंड आई एम श्योर कि ज़ैनब और उनकी टीम डेफिनेटली इस पे काम कर रही होंगी। I won't take much of your time. Just once again wanted to express my gratitude to both of the partner organization, and we look forward to carry on this discussion at our annual conference. And my big congrats to Zainab and her team for accomplishing this study in a very short time and up to the satisfaction of all stakeholders. Keep your good work up, Zainab. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suleri, and for the kind words. It's under your guidance, and thank you for every support that you provide to the entire STPI team who are conducting this, and thank you to all the stakeholders who have joined us here, and even those who have not been able to join us. They have been instrumental in providing support. Especially data collection has been a very challenging aspect of this project. People are not very open when we mention anything that relates to Europe or within this sector. They're not very open to discuss their practices openly. But even then, like Mustafa Sattar Saab and so many other retailers, they openly provided us with the information and data to the survey team, and through that information we have been able to gather this data and develop the reports that we have shared with our partners. And definitely will be, once those reports get reviewed, we will make sure that it reaches to our direct stakeholders and also to the policymakers. Thank you, Umar Saab from the Ministry of Commerce. I really acknowledge and appreciate your feedback and your efforts for supporting this project. Thank you once again, and to the entire UNEP and EU team, to the people here in person. Please do join us over lunch, and also we can have a virtual lunch today, and otherwise, Mr. Asad, when you will be here in Pakistan, we'll definitely try to engage all stakeholders and have a lunch or dinner and meet in-person meeting with everyone. Thank you for that, and I do look forward to your feedback, all of your feedback on 6th of November. Also, as Dr. Suleri mentioned, we are having our annual conference, 27th Sustainable Development Conference, from 4th to 7th November, where we are engaging on a national policy dialogue and a national level debate on this entire study. And we are also inviting over some startups who are engaged in recycling practices in textile sector, especially second-hand clothing, during our Sustainability Investment Expo. So it's an open invitation for all of you to do join us. And yeah, thank you once again. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.